And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Hope everybody had a fabulous 4th of July weekend. Been a few days since we've been on the air. Joe Rexrode, welcome back into town. What's going on?
Not much. Good to be back. I'm really curious to see this new stream that Nick Keyser is telling me about.
Yeah.
This is fancy thing that started last week. Did you guys decide to try it out when you had a less objectionable face on the screen? Not mine.
Well, I mean,
it kind of worked out that
question.
way, right?
It kind of worked out that way. I mean, as we all know, Adam Vingan is beautiful. So
yeah,
we decided to put him on.
Much easier on the eyes. So, it was good. Went to Virginia, saw some family, little fireworks, stuff like that. Back from Virginia.
Yeah.
It was even hotter there than it was here, I think.
It was a very quick switch for me, Joe, in terms of my firework tolerance. Like last year, very briefly pre-baby. Like we were closing in on baby time last year, but she had not come yet. Fireworks, I was out there firing them off till like 11:30, 11:45. July 4th, like 9 o'clock came around, and I was looking around my neighborhood. I was like, well, y'all shut up. Trying to get this child to sleep. Now, I didn't really get mad because it's 4th of July and whatever, shoot your fireworks. But very quickly, I was like, I don't have a whole lot of patience for the fireworks anymore. The baby is not going to sleep. She's freaking out. It's time for everybody to shut up.
It's amazing that you're infringing on my rant right now.
Really?
But I think, we're both old men yelling at clouds of fireworks smoke.
It happened quick.
So, there'll be some more talk of that later.
That's good. It's good. I look forward to it. Nick Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
I'm doing great. Joe, you missed Robby harassing me at the hockey rink during development camp last week because I was wearing pants and my Nikes. It's like, Nick, what are we doing here?
Well, first off,
it's hot.
No, let's not sell this as if you were wearing pants, Nikes. You're wearing pants, your shoes,
and a
you
puff
had a
coat,
shirt, a hoodie, and a coat on. And you're the same person that takes honeymoons in the middle of June to places where you have to wear jackets. Talk about how much you love the cold.
It was awesome.
You're sitting there looking like it's minus 25 degrees in the ice rink. Meanwhile, I'm in t-shirt.
I was going to say, meanwhile, Robbie's, in a tank top, in a bathing suit in the ice rink.
Yeah. So
there's probably a happy medium there, right?
Probably so.
Probably.
Which I think you found the next day.
I did.
An acceptable...
It's exactly what I'm wearing right now.
Yeah, but you look like you were traveling through a blizzard that first day. And you're somebody who claims to love the cold.
I was prepared. Well, I just don't like the wind chill. I played there for years and years, and you've gone to so many practices there that if you're comfortable with what you got. Okay. So I was ready.
I just wanted to make sure we got a proper representation of the attire, not the I was wearing shoes and pants.
Well, what I learned was that I found a happy medium for it. Okay. So I guess there was some silver lining.
So Robby helped you, really.
In some ways, after the fact.
Son, you just listen to me. Things are going to be fine. That's really the general takeaway from this program.
Yep.
So does this stream like show more of us? Is that what the
it does?
Is?
It really does.
There's no border.
I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. More for your viewing pleasure on Robby and Rexrode,
creeping
baby.
into the belly area. It's not a
Welcome back to the Fat and Bald Show. You can see us more now. We got a lot to get into on the program today. A lot of ground to cover. We'll have Corey Curtis coming up at 8 o'clock for his weekly visit from News 2. Which, by the way, I've been on his television show for 2 weeks in a row, so I'm sure the ratings have just been outstanding. So we'll get an update on that coming up at 8 o'clock. We'll get into Tennessee in the 7 o'clock hour. How talented is this Tennessee team outside of the quarterback position under Josh Heupel? A lot of conversation around that. Right now with the Vols, we'll get into that. Are the Titans actually a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? We'll get into that later this hour. But we begin with the Nashville Predators. Joe Rexrode. Barry Trotz was very busy while you were gone. Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea, Scott Wedgwood all coming in free agency. They re-signed Alex Carrier. As we know, UC Saros getting another contract as well. And if you were wondering which direction the Predators were going before, I don't think they're all in terms of trying to pursue a title right now. What did you make of how things went down for Barry Trotz, the Nashville Predators, in free agency?
Well, first of all, I was a little bit pissed off. Can we keep that? Can I keep going? Because I actually, when I'm away on vacation, I'm kind of comforted by the thought of you like being like, so what Titans fourth receiver has what to prove and the Mount Rushmore of the, whatever. And I'm like, my God, they got amazing news to fill this week. And I'm like jealous and I can't be there. Give me my hot takes. But seriously, it was, wow. What the Stamkos thing. This is what, and I listened to the whole presser, and it was a good presser. And as always, Barry Trotz, very thorough in his thoughts. But I'd love to know the day that he traded Ryan McDonough away, if someone told him, and you're going to end up getting Stamkos back, what he would have said.
Yeah.
Remember, I know on this program, I was like, well, you can count on Stamkos re-signing with the Lightning now. That's done.
Same.
So, but then you go the 1, 2, 3. I mean, and he didn't really want to get into the whole like the order of things or whatever, but it's just amazing. I know he talked about, comparing it. Obviously, Paul Kariya is the thing that comes to mind, right? He brought up the offer sheet and matching that and making sure that Weber comes back. But I mean, this is, I think, easily the biggest day of player acquisition in franchise history. I think you could argue it's as big a day of player acquisition in Nashville pro sports history. Now, someone want to jump on me on that one, that's fine. I mean, the obvious comparison to me in terms of Stamkos is Julio Jones. The difference being Titans give up a second-round pick there. They give up a really precious future for that. But I think it's the same thing in terms of Julio Jones was still, when healthy, a really good player the year before. We didn't know he'd hit the cliff.
Yeah.
I don't think Stamkos is at the cliff, but it does happen. Like, we'll see. But that's the comparison that comes to mind. It's just, it's mind-boggling. We had to do grades at the Athletic, and I said A+. I mean, to me, it's like, it doesn't mean it's going to work out. I have no idea, but this is what you should want as a fan of a team.
Well, I could tell you this, the interest level in terms of, I think, the jolt that it's given the fan base is pretty high. And we've gone, back and forth for 3 years now about the right path of, should they rebuild? Should they tear it down? Are they going to go for it? All this stuff. And look, we can still have some of those conversations, but it is what it is now. I mean, they're in. They're going. They've got Stamkos. They've got Jonathan Marchessault. They signed Saros to an 8-year deal. So, Adam and I were talking about this. He thinks it's a 2-year window to win. I think it's about a 3-year window to win a championship. And that's what you're in right now. Like, it's, the odds shot up. They were kind of right in the middle of the pack in terms of Stanley Cup favorites before all this. And now, depending on where you look, they're either 10th or 8th or 7th. I mean, they've kind of inserted themselves into that conversation. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, we had Jonathan Marchessault on the show Wednesday. I think there's clearly still some bitterness there between himself and the Vegas Golden Knights and the way things went down. Obviously, there's bitterness between Stamkos and the Lightning. I mean, he didn't shy away from that in some of his media availability. So you're getting two pretty motivated players, which I think Barry Trotz is probably pretty happy about in this situation. Yeah. Especially given the talent level of both those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, what they've done here is they're not going to let Yossi and Forsberg just age out with a middling team.
Yep.
And yeah, it may not work at all, but it's absolutely worth a shot if you can pull this off. I never would have guessed that they could pull all 3 of these signings off.
And I chatted back and forth with Roman Yossi a little bit last week, kind of after all this went down, and I could tell you, he's fired up. He's fired up about this, which why wouldn't you be? I mean, you get Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, and we talked about what a potential power play unit could look like with O'Reilly net front, Marchessault bumper, Stamkos left wing, Forsberg right wing, Yossi up top. I mean, it's not the Edmonton Oilers power play with McDavid and Draisaitl and that crew, but that unit, to me, when you factor in the talent level and the coach, should be a top 5 unit. Like, that should be a top 5 power play unit that you've got.
No, absolutely. And you've got and you've got, like, to me now, like two timelines. Which I think. I mean, you are still in good shape now. Look, we don't know what will become of a lot of these prospects, but you have some good prospects. You have tons of draft capital still. I mean, to me, if things go well, the next thing another domino that's, I think, inevitable is that Askarov and, maybe another prospect, draft picks, whatever, go for someone else at some point. Now, of course, there's the cap to consider there, but I think that now you're in position to swing something else, that you might need, and you still have the young guys and the down the road. Hopefully, some of these guys start coming up and becoming part of this, but there's less pressure on them. They can come in better situations, and it's just a massive, massive move by Barry Trotz. And we said it when they signed Saros, right? It's like, okay, well, if that's what you're doing, then you have to think now.
Lean in.
You have to. Yeah. If that's what you're going to do, then go for it. And
boy, did he
there
go
it
for
is.
it. Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the whole picture like last year, like kind of the surprise of, wow, Ryan O'Reilly and Nyquist and shit. Okay. But it's like, it creates this, yes, old team, one of the oldest teams in the NHL. But if you're still good, who cares?
Yeah. I've asked a lot of people this question, and I've gotten basically a split response to it, which has been interesting. In terms of career accomplishment, is Steven Stamkos, when he skates his first game for the Nashville Predators, is he the greatest Predator of all time in terms of career accomplishment? And basically the split response has come down between him and Peter Forsberg.
Yeah,
those have been the two guys.
That's the guy. I'd have to look at a side by side, but
I mean the numbers
awfully close.
Like Forsberg only played in like 708 games. Like he didn't play a lot of games. They had like 885 points in those 700 games. It was a monster in the playoffs and won 2 cups. Yeah. So it's pretty close. Like, Stamkos has been around a lot longer and played more games and has better numbers and all that stuff, but it's pretty close. But the point is, you're talking about an all-time great that is now on your hockey team. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And who scored 40 goals last year? So
hey, they can still play.
Right. Yeah, I'll go Stamkos since I hate those Avs teams like few things in the world. Not really Forsberg, though. That was the one guy that you're like, how do you hate that guy? Yeah. Pretty much everybody else.
You get Darren McCarty back on the show.
Yeah, let's ask him that question.
Yes, let's do that. 615-737-1025. Moral thoughts on the Predators coming up next, including a couple of moves that I think may be in the future of the Nashville Predators. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Our text line, still down, under repair. We are switching texting services, so in the process of that. So no text line today. Keep your phone calls coming, 615-737-1025, or hit us up on YouTube, our YouTube chat, and we'll get your thoughts on there as well. By the way, we are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. So what is next for the Nashville Predators? They've got, I think, essentially what their lineup is going to be right now. Now, having said that, they're over the cap at the moment by about $179,000, and they still have a contract for Juuso Parssinen to figure out. They have a contract for Philip Tomasino to figure out. They have a contract for Spencer Stastny to figure out. Now, none of those guys are going to cost you very much money, but it is more money that you got to factor in on, I would think, at least a couple of them being on the roster by the time the season comes around. I mean, I feel great about Stastny being on the roster. With the other two, we'll see. We'll see what the forward group ultimately ends up being like. But regardless, they're going to have to move somebody out. Like, they're going to have to shift some money around. And Barry Trotz has made no bones about that. He said that at his press conference after all these signings were made. He reiterated it again on the radio last week with Willie. So another move is coming at some point here for the Nashville Predators. We went through some options last week about who that could be, whether it's Fabro, who's making $2.5 million. Cody Glass is making $2.5 million. Now, on the Glass front, this is just my thought, and Joe, you can tell me whether or not you agree. My guess is, like, if they could have got somebody to trade for him, probably would have happened already, maybe. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Barry Trotz kind of navigates things here. But I think it's important that they open up enough money, not only to figure out the contracts with Parssinen and Tomasino and all those guys, but I think heading into the season, by the time the deadline comes around, you need to leave yourself room to go out and add a top six centerman, which I think they're going to need. And maybe Tommy Novak runs with this opportunity and plays really well with Stamkos and Marchessault. And if he does, that's great. I still think, even if that happens, you need more center depth. And if I'm Barry Trotz, I am already looking ahead to the deadline and trying to figure out, all right, how much space do I need to leave myself if I got to go out and use some of these the draft capital that we've acquired to go get a rental top six centerman if necessary, because I think you're probably going to see him look that direction come deadline.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So that's, I mean, Glass is the first person who comes to mind for me for sure. But like you said, the interest in the interest in him can't be high at that number. It's not working out. But no, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, I've heard some people talk about like Stamkos centering a lot, I mean, maybe he can, he has played a decent amount, but it does seem like that's the one thing that they still haven't really addressed. It's hard to address.
It is,
but you're right. I mean, the rental scenario, this team is absolutely,
plenty of assets to go get one.
Yeah. And is probably, we would assume, going to be in a position to be a full-on buyer at that point, and right. If not, something has gone quite wrong, or someone's gotten hurt, or whatever. But now that totally makes sense. And I think Glass, Fabro,
they got to figure out what they're doing with him.
Yeah,
they got to figure out what role he's going to play, because to me, if he's your seventh defenseman, $2.5 million is way too much money to be paying somebody to be your seventh defenseman. Now, it's nice to have him. And look, I thought he was fine last year. Like, I didn't think Dante Fabro, rode the struggle bus when he was in there last year, but he found himself a lot of times being the odd man out. And when he was in, he played with Yossi, and I thought they were fine together. But, start of the playoffs, a lot of times towards the back half of the regular season last year, he was the odd man out. So if you look at your defense core, and you think something like Shea and Yossi playing together. You've got Shen and Stasny, which I think they really liked at the end of last year, kind of that style. And then there's Lozon and Carrier, and you re-sign Carrier, and they love those two together. So if that's the way you're going with it, and Fabro's your seventh guy, to me, $2.5 million is way too much money to be paying your seventh defenseman. And I would rather you trade him because I think you can. I think you can actually move Fabro.
There's got to be a little more interest in him.
I would rather do that and trade him and just call up like Mark Delgado and have him be your seventh guy than to sit here and pay $2.5 million for Fabro to be your seventh defenseman. Now, if you look at it and you say, well, Fabro is going to be in the lineup and it's going to be either Shen's the seventh guy or Lozon or Stasny or somebody, but I mean, based on the way they handled it last year, I would have to think Dante Fabro is not going to be an every night player for them because it wasn't a year ago.
And he's a guy who, he's a fringe guy here. I still think he's a guy who it has appeal. He has a skill set that people like, and I think they can pull that off. Glass, I don't know. Glass is tougher.
The one thing with Glass that I'm curious to see if they could you get like an Anaheim to take. Anaheim clearly is not competing. Like they're still going real young. They have $21 million remaining in cap space. They got plenty of money. Could you get them to take the last year of Cody Glass and send them like a seventh back or something like that, and just say, here, take this. We'll give you a fourth rounder or fifth rounder and take the contract off our hands. Is that something that Barry Trotz would be interested in? I don't know. Like, how desperate are you to move that money? Because, I mean, look, I heard some people, and there were some Preds fans at development camp asking me about, could Glass play with Stamkos and Marchessault? And I was like, well, guys, right now, I don't know that Glass will make the team. Like, it was Brunette at the end of the year.
He'd love to have the chance.
Yeah, he would love to have the chance. Like, Brunette at the end of the year was talking about he's got to find his why and, like, why he wants to play the game. Like, it doesn't sound like they're really relying on him moving forward here.
Yeah, Novak will be really interesting if that's the way they go. If basically they're gonna, it makes sense.
Heck of an opportunity.
Yeah, it makes sense to keep that top line together. But also, there's some other really intriguing combinations that could end up materializing here.
Well,
for sure.
I think it makes sense to start with the top line together. Now, we've talked about this, and we talked about this well before Stamkos and Marchessault signed. How realistic is it really that Gus Nyquist is able to do this year what he did last year?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe if he can, then great. You're in great shape at that point. But like, how much patience do you give that line if it's not quite the same? Like, I think it makes all the sense in the world to start with those guys with how well they played together last year. But I wouldn't be totally married to it the whole time if I was Brunette.
Yeah, it's weird. Barry Trotz talked about this in his presser too, and it is just weird how it works some way. It's like this line for an entire season is just lights out, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, the next year it's not the same thing. Happens all the time. And I would be really interested to see like Evangelista maybe get an opportunity in some combination with that top six. I think that's something that could, if he takes a nice step.
Well, and there's an option, like if let's say they did want to put Stamkos at center, you could have Stamkos, Marchessault, Evangelista as a line there, which you talk about an opportunity for that kid. I mean, that'd be a heck of an opportunity right there to start with. So, like, I don't know that Stamkos playing center full time at this stage of his career is necessarily the best thing for them to do, but is it a better option potentially than him playing with Novak? Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what to think about Tommy Novak heading into this year. I mean, there's clearly some ability there. We've seen it. We've seen some flashes of it. There have been some stretches where he's played really well. The way that he was just totally invisible in that playoff series worries me heading into this year.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it could look good in the regular season, and you still, would wonder, okay, well, what does this look like when you get to playoff hockey?
Well, and that is why, really, regardless of the way that he plays next year, to me, you're looking for a centerman at the deadline. Doesn't matter what it is. You can never have enough of them.
Who's on an expiring deal? Do you know? Have you got a list?
Sidney Crosby.
There you go.
Leon Draisaitl.
I mean, shoot.
I'm just saying both those guys.
Add
don't expire
them
deals.
both. Just imagine down the middle, you'd be a lot
What
better.
a line. Stamkos, Crosby, Marchessault. Jeez. Pretty good.
Draisaitl being somewhere in the top 9, right?
Leon, come here. You can play on third line. You got too much depth.
What about Sissons getting a chance?
Look, I really like Colton Sissons. To me, they got to get out of the mindset of putting him in the top 6. He's a really good player. He's a really good player in his role. I think when you start asking him to consistently play top 6 minutes, you're taking him outside of where he needs to be. That's just me. They may disagree with that. Like, they may look at it right now and say, we'd rather have Sissons with those two than Novak. I have no idea. But to me, like, Sissons needs to be in the bottom 6. Like, that needs to be his role.
I forgot you're a Sissons hater. That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder. Sorry, I was
Novak,
on vacation.
Sissons.
Forgot. Yeah.
Don't like anybody.
Yeah.
In the bottom
Cole
6
Smith.
Predators. Yeah,
Cole Smith while you're at it.
Maybe so. 615-737.
This would be good for him, right?
It would. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get back into the Predators a little bit later in the program. Corey Curtis with some thoughts on the Predators coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. Coming up next, do we believe the Tennessee Titans are actually a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts in our YouTube chat. Our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, our phone number. If you normally text in, give us a call, 615-737-1025. Nick Keyser waiting with eager anticipation to answer your phone call today.
Looks excited in there.
He is.
The
So
good
excited.
but the good old-fashioned phone call is so much better.
You really think so?
I think so. Yeah.
You're an
I
old
like
soul.
that.
I like it.
I am, yes.
I would like to have the option of both.
Yeah, I like text better. You can edit, just snap.
Can you, though?
Through.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can read.
Yeah. But our listeners have to send multiple text messages sometimes.
That's true.
Yeah. Just, if you call, that's great. We love your call. Just, keep it short and sweet. Get to your point.
Get to it.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
It will be.
And we'll get that text. We'll get the text line going again.
Hopefully by the end of the calendar year.
By Thanksgiving.
We'll see what happens. 615-737-1025 is our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Do we believe the Tennessee Titans are actually a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? It's interesting because we're at the time of year where training camp's a couple weeks away, and everybody's looking at the rosters right now heading into camp. And so-and-so team, these are candidates to be surprise teams. This is a candidate for a bounce back year a year ago. And a lot of conversation right now in terms of the AFC is on the AFC North, obviously with Baltimore, and specifically with Cincinnati. Like trying to figure out exactly what Cincinnati is right now with Burrow being hurt last year, everything that went down from there. They still finished strong with Jake Browning at quarterback, but ended up fourth in their division. You've got a very talented Cleveland Browns team with Deshaun Watson leading the way, so you have no idea what you're getting from the quarterback position. And then I don't think anybody knows exactly what Pittsburgh is going to be with the combination of Russell Wilson / Justin Fields leading the way at quarterback. So that division, with as good as it was a year ago, is kind of the talking point heading into all this in terms of how the AFC picture folds down. But not far behind it is the AFC South, right? Like you've got Houston, who most people believe won the offseason, Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, and then there's the whole Will Levis discussion that we've talked ad nauseum about around the NFL this offseason here in Nashville. So it's a very intriguing conference this time of year. We know that a lot of this answer is going to come down to how well or not well Will Levis plays quarterback this year. But, Joe, as we sit here today on July the 8th, how much of a threat do you think the Titans actually are to make the playoffs in this conference in 2024?
Well, I certainly wouldn't discount them. Can't discount them, won't discount them. They have a chance. But if you look at that conference, who is definitely worse than the Titans? Definitely on paper, a reasonable expectation. I mean, I
would say New England
teams.
for sure.
Yep, there's one.
I would say the Raiders for sure.
There's two.
And the Broncos.
There's three. That's the exact same three I have. Those three teams, I feel comfortable slotting the Titans ahead of them. Could the Titans be better than the Steelers? Yes. The Colts? Yes. The Jags? Maybe. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the Browns are so the Browns have a really good roster, and they might be a disaster at quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, and then you get into, everybody else that I haven't mentioned in the AFC, I feel are pretty clearly better than the Titans. Look, the Titans went into Miami last year, and it was dark, so Tua had no chance of winning. We should have known all along they were going to win that game. But
this game started after 12:05.
Yeah,
oh my goodness,
they're toast. They won that game, but I look at the Dolphins. Dolphins, Bills. I think the Jets are going to be good, but who knows?
Yeah.
The Jets could be all over the place. Ravens. You mentioned the Bengals. I think they're going to bounce back big time. Texans, I think, are definitely the class of the AFC South on paper. And then you got Chiefs. And, the Chargers are interesting, too. They have no receivers. They've got the Harbster, who is a good coach, but, he doesn't necessarily come in and snap his fingers and turn them into a Super Bowl team.
They should be able to block.
That's true. They are gonna block the heck out of you. So, are they a threat? Yeah, they have a chance, but there are a lot of teams that you'd have to, some things would have to go wrong for them, and a lot of things break well for the Titans. For the Titans to end up slotting ahead of them, But I think it would be very disappointing if the Titans, when December hits, are not at least in it. And that's of course what the NFL wants. They want all these teams to still be mathematically in it, and a whole bunch of teams, trending to be 8-9, 9-8 range. And I think the Titans can be one of those teams. And then, can you win a couple big games late?
Yeah, like I think they're right there. LA I think is a good example, the Chargers. Are the Titans clearly better than the Chargers? No, I wouldn't say they're clearly better than the Chargers. Do they have the chance to be? Yes. Same thing with Indianapolis. Like Indianapolis was a couple of plays away from making the playoffs last year with Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback. So, Shane Steichen, I think did a really good job in year one. If Richardson is an upgrade over Minshew, which you would hope that he is, then you can make the argument they're going to be right there. Look, everybody's down on Jacksonville right now because of how disappointing they were in the second half of the year last year, but they've still got, I think, plenty of talent out there. And Trevor Lawrence just signed that mammoth contract and is going to have a lot to prove this year. So, do I think the Titans are clearly better than Jacksonville? No. Do I think they're clearly better than Indianapolis? No, not clearly. I think they're right there in the conversation with those teams. And that's why, some of it is probably going to come down to those two games, right? Like, how do you do against Indianapolis and Jacksonville this year? I mean, you've got them late in the year. We talked about that stretch where you got Jacksonville. You don't play them until December the 8th. You play them again on December 29th. You got a game on the 22nd of December against Indianapolis. Like, those three games right there may define how your season goes in terms of, you could be in direct competition with those teams for a playoff spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Those games will be huge. Can you get a split with the Texans? Can you beat them in your place? Another way to look at this, sort of like quarterback certainty, like the Colts, Trevor Lawrence and Tua, right? Like, they aren't maybe what people hope they would be, but to me, there's still a certain level of play at quarterback for both those teams that you can count on. Just like the Bills, I think the Jets. I think when Aaron Rodgers can walk again,
he's healthy,
he's
he
going to be good. He's still going to be good. Obviously, the Ravens and Bengals. The Chargers, obviously the Chiefs, and then the Texans are interesting too. I'm still keeping an open mind on a sophomore slump kind of deal a little bit with Stroud, but hey,
it's hard to see it though.
Yeah, he's good. I'm also seeing people putting him in the top 3-4 quarterbacks in the league. I'm like, well, pump the brakes a little bit, but he's probably pretty good. But then the teams like the Titans and the Colts, they're great examples of teams that the range of possibilities is just wider because of that position is still such an unknown. Who else is like that in this conference? I guess you could say the Browns are, because I don't know. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is going to find it again, or if that's just going to end up being an all-time blunder and just a bizarre career. The Steelers. There's even a certain level of expectation for Russell Wilson, which is a lot lower bar than you're used to. But I think in particular, Titans, Colts, there's a lot of possibility and potential at quarterback, and then there's also the chance it could go the other way, and they could be 5-6 win teams.
Well, and the thing is, as we know, there's only 7 playoff spots, and as we talked about, the 7 seed has not been much of a threat to this point. Now, at some point, that's going to change. At some point, there's going to be a 7 seed in either the NFC or the AFC that finds their way into the conference title game or punches their way through to the Super Bowl. It's going to happen at some point. I don't know when it's going to be, but it's going to happen at some point. But you only got 7 spots, and as you pointed out, there are teams in the conference that I think would all believe are clearly better than the Titans are. Now, it's dangerous to play that game on July the 8th because it rarely works out that way. We would all said that about Cincinnati last year, and then Cincinnati had Joe Burrow get hurt. It derailed everything. So, Baltimore, Kansas City, I think Houston you would put into that category. You would put probably Buffalo still, even though with the loss of Diggs is a big deal, but they've still got some good players around them. Miami, I think is a better team than the Titans are. We'll see how it works out. That's 5 right there, and that's not even getting to Cincinnati, which I think you could also put in the conversation. So that's 6. So all of a sudden there's like, if it plays out that way, which is, it won't, something will happen. But if it plays out that way on paper, there's one spot available right there with all these other teams that we just talked about. So yes, I would agree. The Titans are a threat. I think it's still going to be really difficult in this conference to actually make the playoffs. You need a lot of things to break your way.
Yeah. You probably more than anything, you need your young quarterback to take off. And maybe he will in this offense. But yeah, there are certainly going to be unexpected things. The Bengals and Jets last year, you didn't know those guys were going to get hurt. It could have been a totally different year.
And somebody's going to get hurt
teams.
this year.
Yes, of course. So
somebody probably a quarterback. Like some quarterback's going to get hurt.
And someone will be way worse or way better.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot last year. I mean, especially, in the NFC. I mean, the Bucks and the Rams, they kind of came in. Who was way worse than we thought last year? I mean, obviously it doesn't even really count to me because the Bengals and Jets lost their QB.
Right.
But there's also just going to be teams that aren't as good as you thought. Well, right. Jacksonville's a good one. Yeah. I mean, the Eagles faded badly, after their good start. So
Chargers were 5-12. And last year was the annual conversation of is this year the Chargers break through?
Right. Incredible roster.
Yeah.
So a lot of unexpected will happen, but the Titans certainly, it's not like the only teams in the AFC that I would say like you shouldn't even talk about the possibility would be the Pats. And probably, the Raiders, right? The Raiders have to be.
They're pretty
team. Bad. Yeah.
Although,
and I promise you, there still will be people talking themselves into it in those markets too, because again, that's the NFL.
Well, then, the job that Antonio Pierce did last year with the Raiders, I mean, clearly he got the locker room to buy in, so that's going to be a big talking point this year. And then I'm sure even people in Denver will be like, okay, Russell Wilson's gone and Sean Payton's got his guys in there now. It's all going to be good. It's hard to see that one.
By the way, is the plan to go with Bo Nix?
I guess. I don't know.
Who else is there at quarterback?
Our boy Zach Wilson.
That's right. They got Zach Wilson. Okay,
yeah.
So you got to go with Bo Nix. Okay, yeah. Well, there's another team that. Hey, it's a rookie, so I just don't know that Bo Nix is going to be great in the NFL. But it's another if it magically works out. Sean Payton is a genius. Just ask him. So
we've always, when a couple years ago we thought there would be a Wilson playing quarterback really well for the Denver Broncos at some point. Maybe we just got the wrong guy.
There you go.
Maybe it's Zach. Change the scenery.
I need a refresher on all these quarterbacks that have been given up on and where they are, like every year now.
Some of those
Kenny Pickett in Philly. Okay.
Done chasing Cougars in New York, chasing some in Colorado now.
Oh man.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Do you believe the Titans are actually a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? We'll take more of your thoughts on that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Throwing the question out there, are the Titans a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? Should that be the expectation? 615-737-1025. Again, our text line is down, so if you text us normally, give us a call, 615-737-1025, or hit us up on the YouTube chat. Witty Banter 96 on YouTube says, this team can win 10-plus games. This is from Witty Banter. Our buddy,
That's not really witty banter. I expect more from someone that names himself Witty Banter.
Well, Witty Banter, step up your
Come
game.
back at me.
Step up your game.
Right.
J. Rodney Turner says success will depend on the number of minutes experienced during the preseason. Got to get back in the preseason.
Man. Has anybody
First
Brian?
question when Brian Callahan gets back.
I was going to say, has he been asked
I don't think so.
about like
Brian, are you going to play your starters for 3 quarters in the preseason? Remember last year when Kenny Pickett and the Steelers were lighting it up in the preseason? Jared was like, here we go. MVP, Super Bowl run coming for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for bringing that up. I gotta get all his bad takes compiled in one place. That's definitely got to make the list. Yeah.
MVP.
Yeah. MVP Kenny Pickett. My goodness.
Baby hands.
No, it will be. I will say, in all seriousness, I think there's probably some value in getting Levis a few series in the preseason. It's the same sort of thing. It's like if you have everybody together, then there's probably some value in facing another team. There's still like it's like the reps and the joint practices and all that stuff are very valuable, and then you don't have to go out there and take an injury. But it'll be interesting.
It will be. Chase on YouTube says the Titans are a playoff team in the NFC. The AFC is just stacked. By the way, Nathan responding to Witty Banter on YouTube says, winning 10 games with no offensive line, you're high as a kite. It's from Nathan on YouTube.
Wow.
Keep the YouTube chats coming.
Witty Banter is just getting attacked here in the YouTube chat.
Rexrode and Nathan right after him.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Well, I definitely agree that they would have a better chance. I don't know that they are a playoff team in the NFC, but they would have a better chance. I mean, you still have good teams. Cowboys and Eagles are good. Lions.
Yeah, they are.
Packers are good. I think the Bucs are going to be pretty good this year. Yeah, I think they're going to build on that. And I think the Falcons can make a big step.
Captain Kirk.
That's right. And then you get your Rams, Niners, Seahawks. Yeah, I mean, it's not certainly the AFC is the better.
There's more depth
conference. There's no doubt about it. But I don't know that the Titans would just step into the NFC and cruise to the playoffs either.
We've talked about this part of it before. Like to me, this season for the Titans is more. It's more than just the win-loss total. Like to me, it's really about Levis and how well he develops. How much progress does he make? Do you get to a point at any point this season where you look at him and you say, you know what? That's our guy. Like we feel really good about him being the face of our franchise, our quarterback to build around at the end of the year. So it's more important to me than what the win-loss total ends up being. Now, the win-loss total is part of it. Like, quarterbacks are not, wins are not a quarterback stat, but more often than not, the really good quarterbacks in this league win. So we're going to see how that looks with Levis this year. I would be curious to know, though, like if you are a person that's the only thing you're watching for and you care about are wins and losses this year, what's your number? Like what should be the expectation for the Titans heading into this with Brian Callahan's first year? Like we would all agree that if they're worse than they were a year ago, that's going to be pretty disappointing. When you look at all the moves they made this offseason, that would be disappointing. But, like, how much better do you think they should be? Like, if they don't get to 8 wins, is that disappointing? If they don't get to 9 wins and put yourself at 9-8 with a chance to make the playoffs, is that disappointing in your head coach's first year? Like, I'm really interested from Titans fans to see what the bar is for them this year.
Well, the league expectation is that they're going to go about 5-12.
That's the thing.
So, you win 8 games, you're significantly exceeding what the general expectation is. In fact, what's the Vegas over under for that? Aren't they like 4.5 or something?
I think the last time I saw it was 5.5, but
Okay.
I will look
Okay.
on FanDuel right now and see what
5.5.
it is.
So that's Vegas. That's the league. Any mock draft you see, I mean, I can't. I don't think you can find many, if any, that
6.5.
Okay.
How about that?
All right. Well, I'm a little off then, but I still think that so Vegas is still more optimistic, or that's what they've set that line, that over under a little bit higher than a lot of the league. Most people think they're going to be in the bottom 5 of the NFL.
And by the way, the under 6.5 is where the money is, minus 134. Over for the Titans is plus 110.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So they think they're going to be about 6 and 11.
6 and 11. So okay. But meanwhile, we'll talk it to the point where, gosh, could they win 11? Could they? And of course, it is possible in this league. But yeah, I think like if the Titans go 7-10 and they have some obvious deficiencies, that means some of the things they did won't work out, right? I mean, like whatever it is, it means some of that stuff won't work out. Maybe it means right tackle ends up being a big problem.
Yep.
Could be that the injuries, maybe Snead, whatever, Sweat doesn't work, whatever it is. But if they go like 7-10 and Levis has a good year and shows a lot of promise, and you want to keep building on him, you could argue that that's still a better outcome than like cobbling together 9-8 with a really good defense, but you have serious questions at quarterback after the year.
Chef Ran on YouTube, which may or may not be Ran Carthon.
Let him cook.
We'll see. Titans can win the division. It's on Levis and Tavondre Sweat. If they both hit, we are dangerous. Second in the division. My prediction is from Chef Ran on YouTube.
I don't know that I'd put Tavondre Sweat like in a 2-person expectation setter there, but I will say I agree, and we've talked about it. I think he is one of the most important players in this team, because if he's what they spent massive draft capital on, very precious draft capital on, then I think that he and Jeffrey Simmons can be a real problem. And if he's not in shape, if he's hurt, whatever it is, they don't have enough up front. They don't have enough to, if they're not going to be able to dominate and push the pocket and from the inside, they don't have enough on the outside.
Well, and we can get into, they got to stay healthy. We can start naming off every position on the roster that they need to stay healthy at.
Sure.
Quarterback obviously is very important to stay healthy at. And then like I look at corner. To me, it's very important that if it's not all 17 games for the majority of this season, the trio of Awuzie, McCreary, and Snead are healthy, because that's how you've built your defense. That's the way you've chosen to go with your defense, is you've loaded up at corner. And if those 3 guys are healthy, then I think you look at matchups, whether it's with Houston and their wide receiver core, name your team. Like if those 3 guys are healthy, you at least feel good about your ability to cover when you're going up against some of these top receivers. I mean, really, Joe, one of those guys goes down and it starts to become a problem. Like you're having to put somebody out there that you don't want to have out there.
Yeah.
And that happens quick.
Which will happen. I mean, some of them will miss some games. So that's where depth is always, like, your 4th corner is so important. Your 3rd linebacker is so important, because if there's a huge fall off, you're going to experience that in an NFL season, right?
Brian, can I talk to you about Trey Avery?
By the way, speaking of Glennon, totally random, but like he asked like the same question didn't he just ask the same question that Jim Diamond had just asked the other day at the press conference?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
I love it. He's like, the scuttlebutt.
Yeah. Anytime we can do John Glennon impressions on here,
it's fine to do it too, because he doesn't listen.
That's the thing. Yeah.
If he starts listening, I'm going to feel bad about it.
I told him, this came up again with Kuharski the other day. I told him we just keep hammering home the Trey Avery stuff. It'll never get old. Just Mike, Trey Avery.
Pardon me, Mike. Yeah, but that guy is potentially, one of the guys you're going to have to see on the field some this year. But yes, those guys have to stay healthy, and if they do, and if Sweat is a huge factor, yeah, you could see the path.
How much you think
talk yourself into it?
How much you think we're going to be talking about L'Jarius Sneed and his knee this year?
Well, A lot. I mean, obviously during camp, it'll be a daily watch, and I'm assuming he's going to miss time, right? He's going to
I would assume.
miss some time. So, yes, a lot, and he'll get asked by it, and I can already tell, especially like his interview. I think it was on Caroline Willie Demas, right?
Yep.
It's like check the tape. Well, yeah, we know you played last year, but that's not the question, right? Like
Right.
if you're still missing practice, then does that not mean there's a concern?
Chef Rand telling us, hey, we got Gabe Judy Lolly on the team this year. That is true.
I will say, and this is where it's like, okay, so I watched him all through his college career, both in Vanderbilt and at Tennessee.
He's fine.
Yeah, he's a solid college corner.
Yeah.
So, sometimes stuff you see in the spring, just withhold judgment a little bit.
Yeah.
But I will say, he played well. Like he acquitted himself well out there, and he could be a depth guy.
I am going to be probably annoyingly hesitant this year when it comes to the training camp takes. Like,
Last year,
with the way that things played out last year, there's going to be somebody, probably a couple of people in training camp that just go nuts out there and look great. And I'm going to be the annoying guy all training camp long. It's like, yeah, okay. Well, let me know if that still happens in September.
Yeah, sure. Now, it also told us the truth about Andre Dillard.
Sure.
Sure did. It's good and bad. You get some truths out of it. But yeah, the Burks thing was the big one last year, right?
Yeah.
That has to make you feel like you're putting your hand in the hot stove.
615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans. We'll also get into the Tennessee Vols coming up next as well. How talented is this Tennessee team with Josh Heupel and company? And is one take that I saw yesterday a scorching hot one? We'll get into that one next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. We will have Corey Curtis from News 2 joining us to begin the 8 o'clock hour for his weekly visit. We'll get into the Nashville Predators, the Tennessee Titans with Corey Curtis coming up at 8 o'clock. Right now, taking your thoughts on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Our text line still down. We've as we mentioned earlier in the show, still trying to switch services with our text line, so taking a little bit longer than anticipated. Text line down today. Hit us up with a phone call. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. The YouTube chat is already flowing today on the program as well, so keep the chats coming in YouTube. By the way, on the Titans front, Chase says, new play caller, something to prove. D-Hop, Ridley, Boyd, explosive catching backs in Pollard and Spears. The offense has the talent to explode. I would agree with that. If Levis is good, the weapons certainly improved around him this year. I still have questions about how well can they block? How well's the blocking going to hold up? All those things. But there is no doubt there is a potential for the offense to be significantly better than it was a year ago.
Sure.
Significantly.
Right. And how many we went through the QBs, the sort of which teams have real questions where there's a wide range of possibilities. I mean, how many teams have both a QB and a coach to be discovered? And I know Levis isn't a rookie, but still, it's a discovery season for him. How many teams have that also at coach? Like Steichen acquitted himself really well last year.
Yep.
Off the top of my head,
yeah, I'm trying to think.
I mean, you got the Harbster, but he has the established QB.
Well, he's already taken a team to a Super Bowl too, right? Like,
yes, but he's been in college for a while, and things change. The game changes. I mean, I'm sure he'll be good. But yeah, that's the thing. If you take that into account, a first-time play calling head coach with the quarterback trying to figure out, I mean, this team might be as unknown and sort of like open to so many different possibilities as any.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. So on the Vols front, we're approaching talking season in college football, as our good friend Steve Spurrier used to put it. SEC Media Days are next week, thankfully.
Boy, you guys all enjoy that down there in Texas.
Hope everybody has fun down there at the Omni Hotel in Dallas.
Really going to miss it.
Should be a great time.
Offensively, the name of the game is scoring points.
Unfortunately, he won't be a part of it, which I do miss about SEC Media Days.
Isn't he? He's still trying to get in the media space, right?
Pruitt? I think so.
I mean, we need more Pruitt. I know
bring him on the show. I'd love to have him on the show.
I would absolutely love that too. I start trying to.
Jeremy, your thoughts on the nickname Coordinator Cornbread?
Back channel that a little bit. Yeah.
Well, if you make that happen, let me know. We'll get him on the program. No doubt about it. How about this? So I was reading, there's all sorts of stuff coming out on the college football front right now, including just articles ad nauseum about the video game coming out next week, which
yep,
I can tell you at age 31, I'm very excited about. My wife's probably not, but very excited to see how that goes. How about this line from Athlon Sports? I want to get your take on this. The whole article is about kind of the talent with Tennessee around Nico at the quarterback position, and it goes into wide receiver could be the best group that they've had at wide receiver in 25 years, which I think maybe a little bit of a hot take there. But the article starts, and this is from Joey Hickey from Athlon Sports. It begins this way. It says, the Tennessee Volunteers project to have one of their most talented teams in recent memory. It could be good enough to reach the college football playoff in the upcoming season. Perhaps the most substance on the 2024 squad is along the offensive and defensive lines, albeit one college football analyst thinks Tennessee could be particularly good at wide receiver and talks about SEC analyst Chris Marler, says that the wide receiver room, quote, has what I think is the deepest and most talented receiving core that Tennessee has had in 25 years. I mean, they're loaded, and they always are going to have one of the best offenses in the conference, if not the country. What do you make of that? One of the best wide receiving rooms that they've had in 25 years.
No, I don't. I'm not following. I mean, look, I like Brazel, and I think it's a nice ad. Chris Brazel from Tulane good numbers at Tulane. You know, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pump the brakes when you talk to me about the 5-star freshman. I mean, maybe he's gonna step in this year,
Mike Matthews. Yep.
and light it up or be a key guy in that receiving core. But I feel like this offense is kind of you need that year, you know, with the choice routes and the reads and everything to really grasp it. I mean, look at Jalen Hyatt. And I know there was other stuff going on with Jalen Hyatt, but like look at his first year in the offense and then his second year in the offense, for example. So it's a good receiving core, but like I just mentioned Jalen Hyatt, right? The guy who won the Blitnikoff?
Yeah.
That was 2 years ago. He's not there. I
Cedric
don't.
Tillman. Who also
Yeah, Cedric Tillman. I mean, like, and he was hurt a lot of that year, but Hyatt and Tillman together is way more dynamic and proven than what we're looking at this year.
Also, Brew McCoy was on that one too.
He was. Well, wait. So was Squirrel White.
Yep.
Yeah, as a freshman.
Yeah.
Squirrel White's a really good player. Don't
He
get me wrong. Like, I mean, it's a good receiving core, and I think it could definitely. I think it should improve on last season, which part of last season was the McCoy injury, right?
Yes.
And I think part of last season was Joe Milton not being as efficient as you need him to be in some spots. And I think the receiving core was an issue at times. So was the offensive line.
Yeah. Which they should be better in both spots this year.
They should be, yes. So better, good, but I'm sorry, but like I don't know these people, so doesn't necessarily mean anything that I don't know someone. I'm just saying, like, if I've never heard of you, then I'm like, wait, who?
I mean, they do.
What are you saying?
They do talk about McCoy, Squirrel White, and Brazel being kind of big parts of this, and they do mention Mike Matthews as the 5-star. I think everybody they get fixated on 5-star and they say, "Oh, 5-star wide receiver." Then he's going to immediately come in and contribute. And maybe he will. I mean,
maybe he's too good to not, but
Look, Squirrel, we bring up Squirrel White. Squirrel White contributed as a freshman. Now, he was not a starting player as a freshman. When everybody was healthy, it was McCoy, Tillman, and Hyatt. And then the fourth guy was Ramel Keaton. And then Squirrel White, most of his time, his freshman year came when they were up big late in the game, and they kept throwing the ball down the field that way. Now, he did get in the bowl game that year and played really well. So I'm not saying Mike Matthews can't come in and play and have an immediate impact. I'm with you. I'll kind of believe it when I see it when it comes to the freshman part of this. My big question is beyond McCoy, which I feel good. If he's healthy, I feel good about him. Feel good about White. Brazel coming in, we'll see exactly how they fit him in there. But look, they've still got Nimrod there. Does he take another step? We all last year, Thornton was supposed to be their deep threat guy, and it never really happened. He's still there. So in terms of like bodies, they're pretty loaded in terms of the depth that they have.
There's an actual competition.
What's the quality? Like how deep does the quality go with the actual players they have?
Yeah, no, it's great to have that competition, and I just, I think Nimrod's a fine player, but I think that's probably more of a depth guy. But I am still intrigued by White for sure. I'm sorry, well, not White, Thornton, for sure. I still feel like that. I think last year there was that transition I just talked about, and also he had some injury stuff going on too. So, but we know that Heupel likes to focus on a smaller group of guys who play a lot of snaps. So. Maybe that changes one of these years. Another thing about Squirrel White as a freshman playing so much, I remember he early enrolled, and Alex Golish said something like, I think he said it to me, said something like he's one of the most mature freshmen I've ever seen on a college campus, something like that. I could probably find the exact quote, but like that. So that was a little bit of a special case with him as maybe compared to other freshmen. So which is what enabled him to kind of carve out a role that year. Hey, it'd be great for them if Mike Matthews could come in and do it. I've heard he's looked great. I mean, he's obviously super talented.
Sure.
this offense, there's a lot of trust, and it's play after play going so fast, and you got to have those reads down and be on the same page with your quarterback.
Do we agree that this is, quote, one of Tennessee's most talented teams in recent memory? We'll get into that coming up next. Take your thoughts. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063 the game, broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning, taking your thoughts on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Your comments in our YouTube chat as well. Just search Robby and Rexrode on YouTube. Throwing the question out there. How talented is this Tennessee team? Do we agree with an article from Athlon Sports put out there by Joey Hickey that it is, quote, one of their most talented teams in recent memory? Now, the college football playoff part of it is obviously different this year with the expansion to 12. So this is the first year of, great stuff. Really looking forward to it.
Oh, it's going to be
really awesome. Can't wait till it gets 14.
Oh, it's going to be awesome.
Yep. When it's 24, that's going to be awesome. That'd be the great number. Obviously, that changes the equation, and that changes not only how Tennessee, but how a lot of teams around the country are going to view success or failure, right? Like, it's one thing when it's a 4-team college football playoff. It's difficult to just say, well, you didn't make the playoff, so it's a failure. Like, I think we would all agree that despite not making the playoff and the disappointment that was there a couple of years ago when, Hooker went down and got hurt and all that stuff, pretty successful season for Tennessee a couple years ago, even though they didn't make the 14 playoff. Now I think when it is 12 teams, that's going to be the bar for a lot of programs around the country is, well, did you make it or did you not? That's going to be a lot of how this thing is judged. So obviously I think Tennessee is firmly in that boat this year of thinking that they have a chance to compete for the college football playoff. Do you buy that this is, quote, one of their most talented teams in recent memory?
Well, obviously some people think, I don't think he's going to be like the first pick, but James Pierce is, I think, a solidly projected first-round pick, possible high first-round pick. We've talked about, I mean, they've got good talent on the O-line, good talent at receiver. I don't know. Is this team, like, let's take the talent level of this team and compare it to, like, even Butch's
16 team,
15, 16 range. Some of the guys they had on those teams.
Similar.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, it's good. It's a talented team. It's a top. Well, I haven't seen the breakdown. We can look at it in terms of, you can look at it on the 24/7 composite with, with the blue chip ratings, things like that. They've been right on the fringe of being a team that has enough, basically 4 and 5 stars to be a national championship contender. They've been inching toward that. But I don't look at this team like it's, wow, this is a totally different level of talent. If Nico is a star this year, then if your QB talent is that high, then there you go. But also, is he going to be better at QB than Hendon Hooker was 2 years ago when he was the Heisman front runner until they went to Georgia? That's a high bar there too.
It's a high bar. I think that's where it's got a chance, though. Like when you start talking about most talented Tennessee teams we've seen in a while, like if he's great, then I think it's got. I mean, there are people right now that believe that Tennessee has the next 2 number 1 overall picks, and James Pierce and then Nico the year after. Now we're a long way from either one of those things happening. There's a lot that has to happen for those 2 things to go down. But look, we saw enough from James Pierce last year. No, he's a pretty darn good player.
Yeah. He's gonna be drafted
high first-round pick. Yeah. So can he? My question with him is, like, can he build on what he did last year? Can he be even better this season than he was a year ago? Like, a lot of this answer to me is going to come down to that side of the ball. Like, how good is the defense? Are they better in the secondary to the point where you feel you don't freak out every time somebody throws a pass back there, which is at times what you've done the last couple of years. Like they've had some lapses on defense at different points, and I can think about the South Carolina game a couple of years ago. Missouri, they just got absolutely shredded on the ground and through the air last year. They've had some performances on the defensive side of the ball that have just been mystifying in the last couple of years. Where it looks like they couldn't stop anything, and they've happened on the road for the most part. Can you get that thing? Can you get that part of it figured out this season? How much better is that side of the football? Because I do think the offense has a chance to be really good. Like if Nico is what we think he is, and he continues to improve as the season goes on, I think they've got a chance to be really good on that side of the ball. Now, I still have questions about, the offensive line I think is better. How much better is it? Dylan Sampson as the lead back. What's that going to look like? How much is their depth at running back going to be tested? But I think they've got the makings of a really good team on that side of the ball. It always comes back to defense with this group and how good are they going to be on that side.
Yeah. Yeah, like if Lance Hurd stabilizes left tackle, I mean, that's Cam on the right side is better. I like the interior for sure. They do have a lot of guys who I think they have a lot of guys up front who at least I think are going to have a shot in the league. Like Amari Thomas is really good. I like Bryson Eason. I mean, Elijah Simmons is sort of always this guy who you're like, man, if he just got in better shape and all this stuff, maybe this is a year for that. I like Omar Norman Lott, like Tyree West. They have a lot of guys.
Oh, and then Keenan Peely.
And yeah, he's coming back.
Yep. What's he going to be? If he's healthy in his 17th year of college football, how big? They were clearly excited about him last year, and he got hurt in the first game, and that was it. So how much, if he's healthy, what sort of a difference does he make?
Yeah. With Arian Carter. But right, like you said, at what point do they look like a talented team in the secondary? Because they just haven't. They just have not been good enough.
Yep.
At what point do you have some real standouts emerging and feel like you can win matchups against some of the better receivers in this league? There's some great receivers, as always, in the SEC.
Yep.
Um,
And it's not just
McCoy,
holding your own.
Gibson.
Either. It's like, do you have anybody that's an actual difference maker? Like,
Right.
do you have people back there that can take the football away? Do you have people that can make plays for you, not just holding on for survival like it feels like they've done? And look, Kamal Hadden, to his credit, he took a lot of crap from Tennessee fans, and he ended up turning into a pretty good player before he got hurt last year. But even that, like, you need playmakers that are better than Kamal Hadden.
Yeah. He took crap largely because of especially the Florida game when they just collectively looked like they had no clue.
Yeah.
About how to tackle, cover, anything. Just awful performance. But yeah, Jordan Matthews, Ricky Gibson, Boo Carter. You got some of these young guys. You need one or two of these guys to emerge and be like, oh, okay, that's the guy. And at safety, you've had these solid veterans who have done a solid job, but when it comes down to it, it just hasn't been good enough against the highest level of competition. And that to me is quite there. Again, there are a lot of options there. Just like there's a lot of depth up front, but there's just so much unknown in the back end. If they find a couple guys like that, then okay, then we can start talking about this team's talent level compared to some others.
I do think we're gonna find out a lot about the Josh Heupel offense this year, right? Like the Hooker year with Hyatt winning the Biletnikoff, Hooker being the Heisman frontrunner for most of the season. I mean, it was the best offense in college football. They led the nation in scoring, all these things. We know that Heupel's track record, I think, is lengthy enough at this point that we know the offense is going to be good. Like, even last year, the offense was good. It was not great, but it was good. If Nico is close to what people think he is, well, then this offense should be really good again this year. If it is, and last year was more of kind of like a blip on the radar, then I think you're feeling really good about not only this season, but you start to look ahead to, all right, another year after this with Nico after. Like, you're setting yourself up for potentially a run here sometime in the next couple of years. If they struggle again this year, then a conversation that some people brought up last year that I kind of dismissed out of hand, I think becomes a little bit more valid. Like, if the offense struggles this year, the question is going to come up with, all right, well, how much of that was Heupel and how much of that was just Hendon Hooker was a fantastic player? I think it's a big year from that standpoint in terms of this offense, even though, like, if you really go back and dig in on Heupel's offense, going back to his days at Missouri as OC, it's been pretty darn good for a long time.
Yeah, no, it has. And I think it'll be fine. I think Nico will be a pretty significant upgrade over Joe Milton. Receivers are better. Offensive line should be better. Yeah, they, like you said, I mean, they had some losses at running back. Dylan Sampson, it's time for him to, like, become a star. And I think he's talented enough to do it.
Can he do it every down?
The depth there is a little concerning, and
they don't like to do it every down. Like, they've basically platooned the running back position, which I think you'll still see them do at times. But I do think, and I thought this was even probably a criticism of Heupel last year. I thought last year there were too many times where they had a guy going that they just got away from him. And I think Sampson in particular this year, if he's going, I think you got to stick with him.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's tough with the pace they play at, but I thought they moved guys around a little too much.
Yeah, I mean, just Jalen Wright last year at times, it's like you can't take him off the field.
Yeah, stop taking him off the
field.
field.
They did.
And then on the next play or next series, Jabari Small will be out there the whole time.
Yeah. I think the offense will be fine. And it also is like, can you come up big in the biggest games against the best teams? I mean, so far, there's just been no solving at all of Georgia. You know?
Not even close.
So, I mean, and that's the highest, but that's what you're trying to get to. So can this offense, if you have the pieces in place that you want, can you figure that out? Or, do they just have the antidote for this? I don't know. But that's one team. I mean, they did blow Alabama up really for a game and a half in the last 2 years. Joe Milton lighting Alabama up last year.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia has been the one defense where they have just looked anemic against. Like they've not been able to do anything
Good
against
good.
Georgia.
They have a big play or a good TD drive early, and then they disappear.
That's it. I mean, yeah, I think they even back in Heupel's first year, they went right down the field on that. That was a stacked Georgia defense. That was one of the best defenses we said. They went right down the field and scored, and I was like, oh my god, this offense is unbelievable. That was
about it.
That was about all she wrote. And then last year,
One play.
Jalen Wright had the 80-yard run, and then that was about it
Yeah.
on that side of the ball. So Georgia has been the one team that they have not been able to figure out, and we'll see if they can this year. But again, getting back into the 12-team stuff, that's where you do have a little bit more leeway this year, right? Like you've got Alabama and Georgia are still on the schedule. If you win every game except those two, you're still probably going to be in pretty good shape as it relates to the college football playoff.
I would think so. Being competitive would be good.
That would help. 615-737-1025. Speaking of Alabama, are people sleeping on Alabama with Nick Saban out of the picture with the Crimson Tide? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. Corey Curtis from News 2 will be with us at 8 o'clock. Appreciate our friend Scott Stapp for bringing us back in. By the way, one of the things I found on my television this week, babies running around the house, doing a bunch of stuff. So there's different things on the TV at all times, whether it's kids shows. I look up one time this week, I think it was like Thursday, and my wife is watching a Nickelback documentary that apparently was on, I don't know if it was Netflix or Prime Video, but watched the entirety of the Nickelback
She likes
documentary
Nickelback?
and loved it. Yeah.
Okay. Did you watch the documentary?
I watched like the last 5 minutes of it.
So then we kept making sucky music, and then the end.
I've said this before. I think people say they hate Nickelback just because they think it's cool. But Nickelback apparently is doing something right because they sell a lot of records.
I think you're right that it's like a trendy thing to like rip on Nickelback. For some reason, just the name Nickelback makes it easier to make fun of. But they do suck.
They've been making bangers
I mean,
for 25 years, man.
Let's be clear that they're not good. Okay? Can we all agree on that? Witty
They got some
banter.
good
Do you
songs.
have anything on this witty banter? I still haven't heard any witty banter from Witty Banter.
I mean, I would say this. If there was ever a
Nice.
Nickelback Creed combo concert, you bet your butt I'd be there.
Well, it would be perfect pairing, right?
Yeah.
I'd
love it.
They seem perfect for each other.
You could have about a 5-hour concert if you did that. There's a lot of hits to choose
Sure.
from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of hits.
Just weave them in. They play each other's songs.
Maybe together. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they can play like Kokomo by the Beach Boys. By the way, thanks for sending me that.
I've
a
stumbled
real-
across
that was a
this
real
dude on
treat.
TikTok that just sings random songs. And man, the Kokomo one was quite something.
Yes.
Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025, our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, are people sleeping on Alabama? As we know, the dynasty is over. Nick Saban, no longer the head coach at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer coming in, who is a good coach in his own right. He has built up the Washington program. Obviously, they got to the national title game last year. So I think everybody would agree that he is a good coach. The question is, can he even approach sustaining the program that Nick Saban has left behind? That's a heck of a bar. It's a heck of a challenge for anybody that was going to be the coach that followed Nick Saban. And a lot of the conversation right now, when you start talking about SEC teams and winning the national championship this year, the conversation starts with Georgia, as we knew it would. I mean, Carson Beck, they were talking about him winning the Heisman, being the number 1 overall pick, and Georgia being clearly the best team in the country. Then there's Texas coming into the SEC. A lot of expectations on them this year with Sark. And look, they got a really good team. I think they're going to be really good. Ole Miss, and they had a heck of a offseason in the transfer portal. They've got the same exact odds as Alabama does on FanDuel of winning the national championship. So there's a lot of SEC teams at the top that people are kind of talking about. And then there's Alabama, who's got Jalen Milroe. Do we think that people are, I don't want to say dismissing, because it's not like people aren't talking about Alabama as being one of the best teams, but do you think that Saban being gone leads to, I guess, people forgetting about them more than they probably should as it relates to the national championship conversation? Because when you look at their roster, they still got a lot of talent on the Alabama football team right now.
They did. Now, they lost 30-some players between the draft and the portal. But Alabama goes out and also brings in some guys they need. They can luxury shop the portal just like Georgia and Ohio State and a handful of programs. Yeah, well, I don't know about sleeping on them. It's just a fascinating story. Like, if you're Kalen DeBoer, you can, but it's hard to turn down the opportunity. Also, I just wouldn't advise anybody to be the coach to follow the legend. It hardly ever works out. Also, I think he's really good. So I'm just fascinated to see how it works out. You have the comparison that, of course, comes to mind is the Brian Harsin thing at Auburn, which was a complete disaster. And apparently he just had no clue. You hear some of the stories about him and recruiting, and it's like, how could you possibly have gone about your job that way and thought you had any chance? But I think Kalen DeBoer is really good. And it seems like even stuff I hear from media, even just like the program's very different, way more laid back, which I guess some Alabama fans say, no, don't change anything. But I actually think it's smart. I mean, you can't have this lockdown bunker mentality that Saban developed over time. I think in today's environment, I don't think that's the way to do it. I mean, guys can go out there and get paid to do interviews. So anyway, a little more relaxed. I think he seems to get it. And Milroe is just the key. First of all, it's probably a good thing if you're Kalen DeBoer following Nick Saban in terms of, like you said, Robbie, the bar now for everybody is make the playoff. I mean, this team will make the playoff. Now, if they don't make the playoff, they don't make the 12-team playoff this year, well, then we'll immediately get to, oh, my God, Like, again, following the legend, and now the wheels are falling off, and Alabama's coming back to – here comes the thud, and they're coming back to earth. But when you dominate for as long as Saban did, and even though Alabama was one of the great brands in college football and had all this tradition and history before he got there, when you do what he did for as long as he did, I feel like you got a machine that you should be able to maintain to a certain level. Winning a national championship, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. That's ultimately going to be the bar, but there's a lot of talent, and they should be in the playoff this year. And that alone should be some level of, okay, it's not a disaster. It's not falling off the face of the earth.
It's interesting because we've talked about this before in terms of cycles with programs. Really, the one program, when you look back at the last, 30 years, that really hasn't dropped off would be Ohio State, right?
Yes.
Like Ohio State,
the only recession-proof program,
has been a program that really, regardless of who the head coach has been, has always found themselves in the national title hunt over the last 30 years. Now, during that span, I think they only got 2 of them. So that, that in some ways they've underachieved at times with that, but they have always been in the conversation. Is Alabama that now? That would be Michael. Like, is Alabama? Did Nick Saban get Alabama to the point where it's recession proof? That's going to be really interesting to see. Like the national championship odds on FanDuel right now, Georgia's the favorite at plus 300, then Ohio State, Oregon at number 3 at plus 800, Texas at 4, and then Alabama and Ole Miss are tied at 5 at plus 1,500. So those are your top 6 right there. And then, by the way, LSU, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan, Florida State, Tennessee at number 12. So there you go.
Not bad.
Yeah.
That's a great question on them in recession. Look, you make a bad coaching hire, and that's what does it, right? Ohio State had like one bad year, like when they transitioned early in John Cooper's, like in the late 80s. And then like Tressel's first year, they were just like average, here and there. The end of John Cooper, but like it's a year here or there, and it's never, and then they're right back there.
See,
it's hard to imagine Bama like falling off.
It is.
But again, you make a bad coaching hire, and it'll happen. I think Kalen DeBoer is really good. Yeah, they went out and got like probably the most, just pick the coach who has right now is attainable and has done the most, and he's done nothing but win big.
Yeah, he's a really good coach. I do like how's the recruiting going to go in the SEC? And look, to a certain level, unless you're Kirby Smart at Georgia, unless you're Ohio State, recruiting's a really interesting thing right now anyway, when it just comes to, you're always re-recruiting your own roster. Like, that's part of the main reason Saban's not doing this anymore is because it's an exhausting process. So I think the information for a lot of these programs is still yet to be determined on exactly how long-term they're going to be able to recruit here. But Alabama, they've got all the facilities, they've got their tradition, they've got the money, they got all these different, like they should be a powerhouse for years to come. It's really interesting. The SEC this year is going to be super fast. Like, it's fascinating every year in college football in the SEC, but with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, Georgia and the way things ended for them last year, Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, and then the first year of Alabama after Saban. And we haven't even brought up LSU and Brian Kelly yet. Like, it's a heck of a year in terms of storylines heading into it. Drinkwitz in Missouri, they're right behind Tennessee in terms of the odds to win the championship. A&M's right behind them. Let's just
where are Oklahoma and Texas on
Texas is number 4.
Yeah.
Oklahoma is down the list. They're behind A&M, Clemson, Miami, USC, Utah at plus 7,000. So they're probably around 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th on the list.
It's a huge year for them and him, coming in this league. No, the league is it's there's so many teams you could make a case for now that it's 12 to be in there, and you're only going to have, I guess probably about 4, right? Probably about 4 will make it.
I
Maybe
wouldn't be
more.
shocked if 5, but I think there's some people thinking somebody, it's going to be 6 from the SEC and 6 from the Big Ten, and I don't think
which
that
it can't be.
It can't be. You got to have Group 5 team in there. But which I think is stupid. But
And you also have other conference
you
champions.
have other conference champions in there too, which conferences very interesting.
Yeah.
Layout of the conferences heading into this year.
Yeah.
But hey,
Totally makes
I
sense.
can't wait to watch Oregon win the Big Ten. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, they probably will. But no, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, Alabama did lose a ton on D, and that's the thing. I mean, that is Nick Saban's. That's what he is. He's a defensive guy. He's always been an elite defensive coach, going back to designing Bill Belichick's defenses with the Browns in the '90s. I mean that's really been their foundation. They've changed offenses. They've been all over the place offensively, different kinds of quarterbacks, different scheme and all that. But defensively, they've been dominant and elite. And they lost. I mean, they lost their 2 corners, their 2 pass rushers. There's talent coming in, but that's where the coaching change. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Washington, they were built around that fantastic offensive scheme and play calling and talent.
Yep.
So is Alabama going to erode a little bit on that side of the ball? And I don't know. I mean, it's going to be really interesting. I wouldn't advise anybody to follow Nick Saban, but I also can't blame you for taking the opportunity.
Absolutely. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, it's time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. You can check it out every morning here on the program. We will do that coming up next. Right now, I got some tickets to give away. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Some tickets to see the Nashville Sounds take on Iowa coming up later this week at First Horizon Park this Thursday at First Horizon Park. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. A pair of tickets to see the Sounds take on Iowa this Thursday at First Horizon Park. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Welcome back to the Fat and Bald Show. You see us more now.
Sometimes Jared's right.
Oh,
Don't
right
don't make that a drop.
Yep.
Please don't make that a drop.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God.
Put it in reverse, Terry. Put it in reverse. Oh, Lord. Lord, Steve. Oh, Lord. Oh, Steve.
It is that time of the day. Time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode with some Put It in Reverse Terry. Have you seen that video?
No, what is that
Terry.
from? Huh?
Terry's in the wheelchair, and they're lighting off fireworks. You haven't seen this? And they're lighting off fireworks, and he just sits there and doesn't put his wheelchair in reverse, and the fireworks go off around him. Look it up. It's hilarious.
Terry?
Terry.
Just a guy named Terry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
All right.
Put it in reverse.
Put it in reverse. All right. I like I ended up liking the train kid, so I'm sure I'll like Terry.
You will.
Fireworks. But that's a good it's fitting today because we're going to talk a little bit about that. Talk about holidays. A holiday comes and goes, and it's fine to keep things going a little bit, right? Like Thanksgiving, I'm going to hit those hot turkey sandwiches. I mean, I'm just going to eat those leftovers. It's one of the great things about living in this country is Thanksgiving leftovers for days, crushing those. Halloween candy. My kids, it's all over now. They're teenagers. I don't care. But they, back in the day, they'd come home with their little baskets, and then I would take a lot of their candy for the sake of their health. I would steal a lot of their candy. I'll have this Butterfinger and little Mr. Goodbar because I don't want them to have bad health or cavities. Christmas, I keep Christmas lights up all year if I could. By golly, I just keep them up all night. I'm not allowed to, but I would. So 4th of July, you set off your freaking fireworks and then you're done, okay? And if you have any extra, then that's on you and you save them for next year, okay? Now look, this last weekend, the way things fell, you have 4th of July is on a Thursday, so I get it. I get that the weekend's going to go, and a lot of like fireworks shows are still like on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Thunder, by the way. I was not around, but Thunder was Saturday. John Glennon, if he was listening, he loves talking about Thunder.
That's good.
But then that's it, okay? That is it. So you get to last night, and it wasn't a lot, but here and there you hear a random, and it's like, wait, did someone shoot somebody, or what's going on? No, just somebody randomly setting off this or that firework. And look, I'm more sensitive to this now. You have a young child at home, so you're probably more sensitive because of that. We have one of our dogs absolutely freaks out. Poor little Gus. Quinn doesn't seem to care. She'll just poop on your shoe and move on. But poor little Gus just trembles. Yeah. Thunderstorms and fireworks, trembling like you can't console him. Or he goes under the bed. Okay. So it's Monday, July 8th. If you set off any fireworks in my neighborhood, I am going to find where you are. I'm going to drive around the neighborhood quietly. I'm going to find out which house they're coming from, and I'm going to egg your house. Okay? So I'm making you a promise right now. And it's like, and nobody listens to this show. Nobody's going to know that I'm going to do this. Sure. So I feel totally fine. This is going to be fine.
Not public.
Yeah, exactly. It's not committing a crime. You set off fireworks anymore this week. I'm getting in my car. Maybe I'll take Gus with me. Maybe if Gus gets a little taste of revenge, she can be a little bit less afraid of the fireworks. I'm going to find out where they're coming from. And if I'm not sure and it's like, well, it's kind of coming from this range, I'm going to egg every house on that block. All right? I got about 80 eggs in my fridge right now. So just be warned. You don't get to keep doing fireworks for days and days after the 4th of July. It's over. Thank you.
This is a good rant. And I will say my position on this has switched in the last calendar year. I used to, now, granted, I really never fired them other than July 3rd/4th. Like, that was basically it. Like in Hendersonville back in the day.
Like, don't you want to go? That's what you do. You go all out and everything you got.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't understand. Like, what are you saving them for? Like,
yeah, like,
or are you buying so much that you don't have the capability of shooting them all off in one
Right.
night? Like, how much are you buying?
Let's save a little bit. Let's save a little bit for tomorrow, and
Yeah.
we'll save a little bit more for the No, shoot them off.
Yeah, like
When everybody else is shooting them off.
growing up in Hendersonville, we shot our big fireworks show was July 3rd. So people shot them off all the time, July 3rd, which is fine. And then July 4th, everybody's shooting them off. Other than that, it's pretty much over. Like we had some last night. And here's the other thing. If you're going to do them after July 4th, then that's on you. I don't like it either, but do it at like 8:00. Don't start firing off mortar shells at 10:30.
Right. So clearly you got drunk, and then you're like, "Yeah, I got more."
Yeah. Like, let's be reasonable about the time too. Like 10:30 on
Yeah.
July the 6th
On a Sunday.
is a little bit much. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, if you like it that much, and look, I was a kid, that was exciting, man. We'd find some fire, we'd have a big old pile of them, but like they were all used up that night.
Yeah.
Like, you keep going. It just, I don't understand it. So I think the only way to stop it is with revenge.
Well, we had our neighbors were firing them off all over the place July 4th, which is fine. Like my wife was getting mad about it because our child goes to bed at 8:00 and it was not going very well.
Sure.
Just because there was explosions happening all around the house and she was freaked out about it. So, but I even told Heather, I was like, it's July 4th. Like, we can't go out there like crazy people and start yelling at all our neighbors at 8:45 at night for people shooting fireworks on July 4th. We're just going to have to suck it up for a night.
It's going to be a bad night. Yeah.
July 6th or 7th,
Yeah.
I may let you go out there and start yelling.
Right. Exactly. Like, we all know the deal. We all know the score on that night. Just like I don't want someone in a Yoda mask coming to my house asking for candy on November 4th. Like, go away. Who, weirdo? But on October 31st, yay, come on. Great. You know the deal. And the deal is there. It's a fix. Oh, yeah. What?
Some of my favorites are like when people start shooting them off on like December the 26th in preparation for New Year. It's like, just do it. That's even more of a violation. Like, just do it on the New Year. What are you doing on December the 27th?
I'm not aware of this phenomenon.
Oh, it's happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Up your way,
Start
man. I think
firing
I'd really
off.
go nuts up there, man.
Well, look, man, I'm sure that this is the case more than just in the Goodlettsville, Hendersonville, Ridgetop area. There are firework tents everywhere.
Yeah.
These people must make an ungodly amount of money on these firework tents. There's this one tent that I pass every morning on the way for like the last month on the way down here to work. It's the same guy every morning sleeping out in his car because you got to sit there and guard it to make sure that nobody comes and steals all your fireworks.
Sure.
It's the same guy in the car. Like, can you imagine having the commitment level to sleep in your car for a month straight just so you can have your firework tent? You better make a lot of money.
I hope that stuff crushes.
Yeah.
Well, it's like being in I was in Virginia this last week with my siblings and mom and everything. And it's, so my brother-in-law big on this stuff. I mean, they had some major stuff this weekend, but you can't buy it there.
Yeah.
So then you're going to, they go to Pennsylvania is where they get their stuff, you get up there they drive a couple hours to go up there across. To go get the fireworks. It's a big deal.
I would love to know how much money the average firework tent makes in the span of this month. I'd love to know.
Yeah.
Maybe next year, a Robby and Rexrode firework tent with the stipulation that July 5th on, you can't shoot them.
Yeah. They should
There's
make
your
fireworks
contract.
that implode on July 5th if they're not lit. Can we make that possible?
Wow.
I'm talking about you.
Load.
That could end poorly.
Wait, what did you just do there, Nick? Speaking of fireworks.
Nick's getting a little too random with this file here. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Corey Curtis from News 2. We'll get his thoughts on the Nashville Predators free agency last week, his thoughts on the Titans as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. And as we do every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend and my television partner, Corey Curtis from News 2 on the program. Corey, how we doing?
I'm good because it's an honor to be on with a TV star.
Yeah, thank you.
Ratings spiking, I'm assuming, recently?
I don't know, but, I'll just say this. Robby didn't have a hair out of place last night.
Well, you're darn right.
My.
You are darn right. Corey's got the beard flowing, too. It's good looking man.
I got to fit in with the cool kids,
Yeah.
Jared and Robby,
Nothing says cool like Stillman and Robby. Good stuff.
Yep.
Man.
And sexy.
Well,
Sex sells on TV, I hear.
Sure does. Sure does.
We weren't selling much.
Well, Corey, a very busy week for Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators last week.
Yeah.
We talked about the possibility of landing Steven Stamkos last Monday when you were on with us. Well, not only did they land him, they landed Jonathan Marchessault, Brady Shea.
Yeah.
A very busy period for the Nashville Predators. Overall, your takeaway from what Barry Trotz accomplished last week and where that puts this hockey team?
It's like when you go to the store and there's a sale and you find something you really like, and then you find something you really like and another thing you really like, and the sale is so good that you still have money for all of it. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, I told you last night, the thing, we both agreed. You get Stamkos and Shea and you're like, wow, what a day. It's the Marchessault part that just completely puts this thing over the top. A proven winner, a 42-goal scorer a year ago, and you get him for $5 million. I mean, it's quite a deal. It's quite a day. It's quite a haul. It still has to be proven it can work, but those guys have proven results. I mean, those guys are all from winning teams. So you obviously like that as well. And it's more of a Vegas mentality, isn't it? Go out and get players. And I kind of like that because you've been here a long time. I've been here a long time. Joe is getting to the point of being here a long time. And we all have seen year in and year out where they come in with this host of young players where we're like, well, they need one of these guys to deliver, or they need two of these guys to deliver. Or I hope this is the year that this guy develops. And I think Barry just said, forget that. If one of those guys develops, great, but we need players now. We need to go win. And he went out and he's, you need to develop eventually, but if you don't, we're going to come out and you can play.
So how would you compare that day, Corey, just in terms of just wow factor, player acquisition, just wow factor to anything that you can recall previously for this organization?
I mean, the Paul Kariya day was a big day, but that was one guy. But it was the first, really big guy that went out and he got, and a guy wanted to be here, and that was a big day. But Stamkos is going to Hall of Fame, and he's got 555 career goals, and like I said, Marchessault is a Conn Smythe winner. I mean, and for this team, which had been kind of cash strapped for a long time, and that hasn't been that much of an issue, the last few years. But to see them go out and just get the top of the market is pretty stunning. And to see this go from a place where the Canadian media just absolutely loathed, they probably still do, and it was kind of a questionable hockey market, to a place where guys genuinely want to come. I mean, they couldn't keep Ryan Suter here, and Zach Parise didn't want to come here, and now you've got guys who want to come here. It's a stunning development in the organization, in the city, in its place in the hockey landscape. Like I said, it's still got to work, but you really like its chances. I mean, I've been here since 2003. I can't compare it to anything this team's done before.
So with that in mind, is what they've just done paired with what they already had on the roster, is that good enough to be a contender for a championship in your mind?
Better. It has to be. It has to be. I mean, look, you got a Norris Trophy winner leading your blue line, and now you've lost Ryan McDonough, but you bring in Brady Shea. So you've got you probably still need to develop some back end depth there, but you've also got Stastny, who's coming up, who you really like, and so I think you've got some stuff there you like, and now you've got two lines. You've got two lines to really roll through. You've got a power play that should be filthy. That should be enough to win you some more games. Now, we've seen in the playoffs anything can happen, but we knew this year, watching them, and as good as they were at certain points of the year, we knew they were limited in who could score, especially when they needed goals, and especially when you get to that time of the year. And you've got guys now who've proven themselves during that time of the year. And I think Barry talked about, those guys who've won the cup tend to like to win the cup again, and they pull guys along. And I think that there's some truth to that, because I think, you've got to have guys to kind of show the way and say, I know how this is done. I've been here before. And so, look, they've still got a ton of draft equity. They don't have a ton of cap space. We expect them to make some moves to create some. So if it's not quite enough, or if there is some fine tuning to be done, they have the equity to go get something during the season. But you would hope what they have puts them in the conversation. Now you got to stay healthy and go do it.
So I guess it's similar kind of question, but this next year, Corey, what's success? What's failure? I mean, obviously success, yeah, like you said, they should be a contender. They should be in the mix and have a chance. But what would be acceptable this year?
They've got to get to at least the second round of the playoffs to me. They can't be a one and done team.
I would agree. Vengen was on with us the other day and even pushed that to conference final. So you're talking Final Four in the NHL at that point. Is that too lofty, or is that fair?
Like, I don't think it's fair to say, well, if you don't make it to the conference final, it's a bust. Just take a look at the 8 this year. They were really good. They were really good. It's, I know fans probably don't agree with this, and that's fine. They can get in line. You can play well and lose because some other teams are really good. I mean, it happens. I've seen it. I've seen teams play great and still come up short. So look, if they came out, like the 2018 Preds team, after they went to the Cup final, that went out and flamed out in round 2, they were terrible in that round. And so that was a disappointment because they played horribly in that round. But, again, how you play always matters to me. This team could play well in round 2, but if they're playing Dallas or Colorado, or Edmonton, guess what? You might lose.
Yeah.
I mean, you might. You feel like now you can stand there and go toe to toe with those guys, where before you're like, well, we got to play our game. We got to, take advantage of the power play. We've got to be really good on special teams. Saros has to be incredible, and now you feel like, okay, we've got the guys to get on the ice with those guys and say, let's go play. And I think that's the big difference.
I've asked a lot of people this question. I've got basically a split response, just in terms of career accomplishment to this point. Is Steven Stamkos Is Steven Stamkos the greatest Nashville Predator of all time? Basically, the split has been between him and Peter Forsberg. Where do you come down on it?
I'd have to go. Forsberg's been a while. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. I mean, in Korea was really good. We can't discount him. Forsberg's an all-timer.
It's very close.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hate to cop out like that. I don't know. Forsberg was a bigger guy. Wasn't he like 6'3", 6'4"?
Yeah, he's a big dude.
Yeah, he was more of a physical force. Stamkos has the hardware. Stamkos has a 60-goal season to his credit. And, the other thing about Stamkos is he's been in the league since he was like 17, 18 years old. He's already played like 15, 16 years, and he could play like 5 or 6 more. I mean, this is a guy who's he's going to have well over 700 goals probably by the time he's done.
He could.
And so, maybe now it's Forsberg, but maybe when he's done, it's Stamkos.
You get a sense, Corey, that the fan base is. I mean, I'd love to know, what the ticket office situation has been. But do you get a sense that there's just more buzz about hockey in July than we usually see, just because obviously football's coming?
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. I mean, everybody's ready for football to get here. I mean, shoot, every day for me starts with this many days till training camp. But I mean, this happened a week ago, and we're still talking about it. All right, that doesn't normally happen. In the past when the Preds have added, Cody McLeod and Gustav Nyquist, and we like Gustav, he's a good player, but those don't have us still talking a week later.
Yep. All
right. We're still talking a week later, and our jaws are still on the ground and our tongues are still wagging. And I think, I don't know if I'm speaking for you guys. I'm excited for hockey season to get here. I want to see what these guys can do. I want to see Steven Stamkos in a Nashville Predator uniform. I want to see how good those two lines, could be, and what formation that they take on. Because just because O'Reilly and Forsberg were amazing a year ago, it doesn't mean that's what the line is going to be. They may find two lines that they like even better. And, that's speaking of sex sells, that's pretty sexy. And so, and I'm a football guy. I'm an NFL guy. There's no question about that. But I'm ready to go watch these guys play.
Yep. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Corey, great stuff as always. A great appearance by you again on the program today. Thanks for being with us.
Well, I'm glad I've set the standard so that you know what you have to do when you show up on TV. I tried to include Joe in the show, but he was too lazy.
Yeah.
So
Oh, crap. That's right. I was supposed to send you something and I didn't. Gosh, darn it. I'm sorry.
You did. You were supposed to. You didn't.
Jeez.
I'll get you next time, man.
By the way, did you guys see our poll question last night?
I did.
People were fired up over that one.
I did.
We asked which fan base has the most overinflated sense of itself.
Yeah.
It was the Jaguars.
Some
Colts,
members
Cowboys.
of Duval Twitter were not very happy with you.
Oh, they never are. They
you
never
had Jaguars, Colts, Cowboys, and who?
Patriots.
Yeah.
And the Jags won?
No, the
I
Colts
just saw
won
some
easily.
upset. Yeah, Colts won, but Jags fans are pretty upset.
They're always
to be
upset
included.
because you know why? Because they have a massively overinflated sense of themselves. I mean, there's been no organization in the NFL that's been worse than the Jaguars for the last 20 years.
Ooh.
Okay, and how on earth that fan base comes into each season thinking this is the year we're going to do it? We're so much better. They haven't done anything. The only year they got to the playoffs, they went 8-9.
That is true.
I mean, they talk about Trevor Lawrence like he's top 5. They're paying him to be the quarterback they think that they want him to be instead of the quarterback that he is.
Corey Curtis is not going to be
Todd from
invited to that
Jacksonville?
milky pool down there at the Jacksonville Stadium. They're
I mean,
not going to let him
I'm
in
a
the pool.
Bears fan. I am very realistic. I am hopeful this year. All right, I am hopeful, but I'm not going to be like Jaguars fans. This is the year we're going to knock off the Packers and the Lions. You know what? When we do it, we'll do it. All right, but I'm not going to prove it until. I'm sorry. The Peterson Lawrence Super Bowl tandem is terrifying the league. I'm sure in Philadelphia right now they're like, oh my God, I hope we don't see the Jags in the Super Bowl.
Jags catching some
Man,
strays
right.
from Corey Curtis this morning. I like it. I like
I
it.
do too.
Thank you, Corey. We'll talk to you next week.
All right.
Corey Curtis from News 2, our guest on Robby and Rexrode. We'll react to what Corey had to say. Take your thoughts on the Preds. Are they a championship contender? We'll get Joe's thoughts on that as well coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Taking your thoughts on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Text line still down. Going through some servicing changes.
Renovations.
Some renovations with the text line. Hopefully that will be up soon. Taking a little bit longer than we thought with the text line.
We had to get rid of all Jared's burners.
We did, which is a
we had to
process.
Purge the system.
Well, and after some digging and investigating, Heidi from Dixon, whose identity may have been revealed a few weeks ago on the text line of somebody who was previously incarcerated. So there you go.
As long as it's not Big Joe. Enough Big Joe. Who did we find out Big Joe is?
D.N. Johnson. D.N. Johnson.
And also, like, there was another one that was like Joanna from somewhere. Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on. Come on. Got to watch out for Big Joe.
But, I mean, look, come on. How can you get mad?
What a face.
How can you get mad at that guy?
That's right. Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Obviously, a big week for the Predators last week, as Corey Curtis just described. We're still talking about it. It's a heck of a move from Barry Trotz and the Predators. If nothing else, they are 100% going to be more interesting heading into next year. I mean, you add Stamkos and Marchessault to your team, and you're pretty interesting right off the jump. So there's that part of it. They should be a better hockey team. The question is, how much better, and are they in a spot where they are a contender for a championship? Do you believe, after the moves that have been made here, that the Nashville Predators are contenders for the Stanley Cup?
Well, does Andrew Burnett want to do over on at the end of the year press conference, like, next year you're gonna be a little rough or whatever he said? Like, no, it won't be. You're gonna win the cup, Andrew. You didn't know? You didn't know Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea were coming? Yeah. Look, I think they're a contender. I mean, if you go through the Western Conference, I think Edmonton is.
I think still clearly the best
is going to be the favorite going to next year, and I think Dallas is good, and I'd probably slot Dallas ahead of the Preds, but not by a ton. I just again, what's it going to be? I mean, if it's the best possible outcome or close to it, then yeah, the Preds are a contender. It could be well short of that, but right now, based on everybody hits a cliff, and sometimes it's more of a steady decline or whatever. But based on what Stamkos and Marchessault did last year, unless the cliff is coming, and maybe it is, but unless it is, then it should mean a lot. Like Corey said there, I mean, we've talked about it. Power play should be insane. And you actually have the potential now. When's the last time the Preds had really like enough top shelf players forwards to where you've got two really potent lines and you can do different things with them, but you have two?
It's been a while.
I mean, the President's Trophy team, they had that top line,
but even that team was not. It wasn't superstars. It was good players,
right? I'm trying to think of even who, like, so obviously they had Turris centering. Who the heck?
And Fiala there. Scott Hartnell played up in the lineup some. You had that top line together. But, I mean, it's
not this.
It wasn't
at all.
This. Like, I would go back to 06, 07 with that roster and what that roster turned into as really the only thing from an offensive forward firepower standpoint, probably the only thing that really compares. When you had Peter Forsberg, Paul Kariya, Steve Sullivan, Jason Arnott. I mean, he just got rattle off. I mean, they had a pretty good group. We talked about this last week. I still think that team, from an overall team standpoint, was deeper than this one. I think 17-18, when you factor in the entire team, was deeper than this one on paper.
And certainly better on D.
And certainly better on defense, no doubt about it. But Stamkos talked about this in his press conference, even before the Marchessault signing and kind of looking at the Predators and the boxes that they checked. Stanley Cup winners. Do you have an elite defenseman? Well, they got one. Do you have an elite forward? Well, Forsberg, the way he played last year, was an elite forward. And now you've got Stamkos and Marchessault joining the mix. And then there's the goalie part of it, regardless of how you feel about goalie. Like we all feel good about UC Saros playing goal.
Still matters.
Still matters. So
It's an important position in hockey.
A lot of boxes that you check that they've got. I'm looking at the odds. Not that the odds are the be all end all, but it does kind of tell you at least how they're viewed heading into this. The Predators are at number 9 in the league in terms of Stanley Cup odds at plus 1,600. They're number 4 in the West. So Edmonton at 1, Dallas at 2 in the West, Colorado at 3, and then it's the Predators at 4.
Okay.
Now you're talking about 2 teams in your own division that are ahead of you in that, but number 4 in the West in terms of the odds.
That sounds right. I mean, you can't just discount the Avalanche either, right? So,
although I could make the argument that the Predators are better than they are right now. Now they don't have nobody that the Predators have.
Landeskog, I mean,
right.
Well, you can make they have two guys who are absolutely elite.
Yes, no doubt. Well, I'd even say 3. They've got
with
Rantanen, McKinnon, and Makar. Now McKinnon and Makar are at a different level, but Rantanen's really darn good.
Sure.
So they got 3 elite players. Do the Predators have 3 elite players? Probably, but not to that level. Like McKinnon's the best player in the game right now. One of the 2 best players in the game with him and McDavid. I mean, he just won the Hart Trophy. So they're always going to be a factor when they have those guys. But I don't think even Dallas. Like I think Dallas is better than the Predators are on paper. But we were talking about this last week with Vingen. If the Predators are in a playoff series right now, do you just think there's no chance against any of these teams? And they got a shot. Like, I think they got a shot against Edmonton. They got a shot against Dallas. They got a shot against Colorado. And I think in a couple of those cases, you can say they're right there with it. Now, I still think Edmonton did a pretty good job with the limited space that they have of kind of loading up. Like, Arvidsson's not a top-line player anymore, and we'll see if he can stay healthy. But I like Arvidsson as kind of a depth piece with Edmonton. I mean, they brought in Jeff Skinner. And Jeff Skinner getting paid $9 million a year is a bad contract. Jeff Skinner getting paid hardly nothing to go play in the top 6 in Edmonton could work out really well for them. So, like, I think Edmonton is still clearly number 1, but I think the Predators are in the mix behind that.
No doubt. So, yeah, I mean, they're a contender. It just you can define that different ways, and some people would say, okay, well, I just want your top 4 or whatever in the whole league, and I probably wouldn't put them in that spot. But there is not a team, given this lineup, there's not a team in the league that I look at and say they would have no chance in a series. And there's been plenty of teams you would say that about in recent years.
Let me ask you this: in terms of hype, what do you think the excitement level is going to be from the fan base about this team? Because I would contend that this will be the most hyped Predators team since the 17-18 year. Obviously, when they went to the Stanley Cup final and they came back the next year, there's a lot of hype about that team. So I'm not going to sit here and act like this team's going to have more hype than that one, but I think it's close. Like it's different because of the star power.
It's very different because I would even argue that going into 16-17, just because of Subban, there was like this excitement about what that was going to look like, right? Now, but they hadn't had the big time success. I think this is a different level because of you're bringing in superstar players who you haven't seen play with the team yet. Again, I see parallels between this and the Julio acquisition for the Titans, and of course, if you're a Preds fan, you don't want it to turn out the same way. But that's what it reminds me of, the excitement for that team, as we've discussed much on this show, the most excitement in a long time for that 2021 Titans team. And yeah, I don't think this, I think this is beyond some of those other things just because of the guys that you would never seen playing a Preds uniform that now you're going to get to see and see what it looks like, the curiosity aspect. Whereas 17-18, you knew what the team was. You were excited because they were good.
Yeah, and the Stamkos part of this is really interesting because he, regardless of kind of where things go from here, you'll always be able to wear a 91 Nashville Predators Steven Stamkos jersey. So that part of it, like, he's a future first ballot Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great player. And I still think he's got game left. Like, all that stuff is cool. Like, I talk about, is he the most accomplished Predators player they've ever had in terms of what he's done in his career? And I think you could make a good argument that he is. But at the end of the day, it only matters what he's still got left. And we're going to find out. Like, there's a good chance to me that year 4 of his contract and years 4 and 5 of Marchessault's contract may not end up looking pretty well for this team. But if you win a championship, but if you find yourself in contention over the next 2-3 years, like that's why you signed the deal.
That's the cost.
Yeah.
Right. Like the idea that you would judge these deals by how they are at the end of the deal. No, you sign up for pain, you overpay. Although again, the Shea contract,
We'll see.
Yeah.
The term probably a little
terms
steep,
high,
but
you sign up for not necessarily expecting, but understanding that there may be pain late. But the point is what happens immediately.
Yeah, it's like I said. I think they're going to be good. I think they're a contender. We know they're going to be interesting. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be a very interesting team to follow all year long. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll get back into our question of the day for the Tennessee Titans. Are they a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keys are here with you. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana, hometown of 1J Cutler. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Caller number 5 will win a pair of tickets to Holiday World and Splash and Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana, 615-737-1025. You ever been to Santa Claus, Indiana?
I don't think so. It sounds awesome.
Holiday World, great place. I've been there many times. You'd enjoy it.
I'm sure I would.
Got some good coasters, good water park. What's not to love?
Seems like a place that would be good for like a Creed concert.
Well,
it's like when Spinal Tap played at a music park. It was like puppet show and Spinal Tap, like Creed getting second billing on at Holiday World.
That's not the voyage I want to ride, Joe.
Wow, I see what you did there. They got a roller coaster called the Voyager.
Yeah, okay. I figured there was some
Mm.
word play there.
I'm trying to look
You
it up
sneaky guy, you.
and to see if Creed has ever played at Holiday World. I'm not seeing it, but
They'll get there.
it could happen.
It's heading that way. They'll get there.
Don't you worry. It will eventually happen.
And then
Maybe that could be the perfect spot for the Nickelback Creed
I was
duo.
going to say Nickelback will be over playing by the Scrambler. They just played during when the Scrambler runs. They play one of their hits. Be awesome.
Tell you what, if there's ever a day where it's a Nickelback Creed concert at Holiday World, that sounds like heaven to me. I'll be there. I'll be there all day.
I will go. I will go too. I will absolutely. As long as I can get like an elephant ear.
Hey, Creed's coming up August 13th here. You going to be there? Yeah, we got to find a way to like do our show from there the morning of the concert.
I mean,
is August 13th a weekday?
I don't want to
Let's
have
see.
like a confrontation with Scott.
Well, then be nice.
He seems like a nice guy. I don't.
It's a Tuesday. We can make this happen.
It's Tuesday at Bridgestone.
I think it's at Ascend.
Oh, it's
I
at
think they have
Ascend.
one at Ascend, and then there's another at Bridgestone coming up in like the fall. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I can't. Like it would truly be, as much as I make fun of it, it would truly be hell to have to listen to an entire concert of their crap. I mean, it really would be. It would be a terrible, awful experience in my life.
Oh man.
I mean, I might take one for the team though.
Redemption on YouTube, which is our friend Johnny in Vancouver, says Canadian here. I'm embarrassed Nickelback is Canadian. Jeez.
I didn't even know they were
Catching strays. Oh, I knew they're Canadian. Canada's
Spread
finest.
the word.
Yeah.
Thanks, Canada.
So our question of the day for the Tennessee Titans: are they playoff contenders in 2024? We went through the AFC earlier, and I mean, it doesn't take long to fill up the board and find some teams that you think should be playoff teams in the AFC. I think there's a decent sized group of teams in the AFC, like your Chargers, Colts, Jags. I'd throw the Titans in that mix. I guess I would throw Pittsburgh in that mix because they always seem to find a way to be in there regardless of what their situation looks like. That are all kind of right there and it could go either way. Like they could be pretty good. They could be a playoff team. They could be bad. They could be somewhere in the middle. And there are teams like obviously Kansas City and Baltimore that you feel really good about. The Titans, a lot of it is going to come down to Will Levis. We know that. We spent all summer talking about that. Do you consider them a playoff threat, a contender for the playoffs in 2024? I'm not saying Super Bowl contender because I don't think you're going to find very many people that would say that, but a contender to make the playoffs in Brian Callahan's first season.
Well, you got to be just horrifically bad to not be considered a possible playoff team. And there are a few teams that I think fit that bill in the NFL every year. And look, most people think the Titans are one of those teams.
Most people do.
I just saw Sam Phelan put out ESPN just has another mock, and it has the Titans picking fourth. By the way, picking James Pierce Jr. from the Vols. How exciting would that be? But picking fourth. That's what I say.
Finally, the disrespect for Tennessee fans would end.
It's done smacking. They've learned their lesson. It's Vols only and no Cats ever again. But that's the expectation is about third, fourth, fifth worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Could they be? Yeah, like you spend, we've been talking a lot about the Preds expenditures, of course. That's just a massive day of free agency for the Preds. But the Preds and the Titans combined also, this has to be easily the most active free agency offseason in Nashville pro sports history.
Easily.
Right? Like
it may be the most active for both teams.
Right.
Yeah, Joe,
At the same time.
I'll share this with you. Obviously, one thing that I found in the first half hour of free agency for the Predators, they spent $110 million. And then if you look at the Titans and the Predators all together, when it was all said and done, both teams combined spent over $336 million in free agents this offseason. That's
big spenders.
wild.
That's a good number. That's good. That's good stats. Yeah. I mean, that's just so when you do that, I mean, you don't do that and then they're not a playoff team, right? Like if you get the guys they got, and again, I think in the NFL, it's rebuilds are really fast and the patience is really low, and quarterbacks are attempted and discarded in the blink of an eye. But Sure, the Titans. I mean, I think they're definitely better on paper than the Patriots, Raiders, Broncos, and that's probably as far as I'd go
in the AFC.
in the AFC. Yeah, to make
which
the
is the only thing that
playoffs.
matters in this discussion.
Yeah, and then there's a bunch of teams, like, the Steelers, Browns, the Colts, the Chargers, the Jags, and even that's probably about it of teams that I guess the Dolphins are. Dolphins are better than the Titans on paper, even if you hate Tua. But if you take away the teams that they're definitely better than, and then those teams, how many teams are clearly better than the Titans that like you would be shocked if they don't make the playoffs? I'd be shocked if the Bills don't make the playoffs. Ravens, to me, Bengals, Texans, Chiefs. How many is that?
That's 5 right there.
That you'd be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. And then you have, I do think the Jets should be good. The Jets might be so dysfunctional that we'll see, because that's what it will take. With their roster, with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, they'd have to be incredibly dysfunctional to me to not have a really good run at a playoff bid.
I agree.
So, but you get down to about that last spot. And could the Titans be one of several teams fighting for it? Sure, they could be.
I'm looking at Super Bowl odds right now, which again, nobody I think seriously considers the Titans a Super Bowl threat. It is surprising that there are 4 teams on FanDuel that have worse odds than the Titans. Well, I say worse odds. They're tied with the Giants. So there are really 3 teams that have worse odds than the Titans. Denver, New England, Carolina. The Raiders, who I agree with you, I think the Titans are better than the Raiders. The Raiders are plus 10,000 odds. Titans are plus 15,000.
Wow. That's surprising.
It's surprising to me. But yeah,
well, they're right in Vegas.
They are in Vegas.
Maybe that gives you a
hometown discount
or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe so. But
plus 15,000. Man.
Clearly
$4 on it.
Not just the betting market, but I guarantee you when, prediction season comes out next month and a half, and teams, the ESPNs and the Athletics and the experts around the league are coming out with who they think is going to be good, who they think is going to be bad. You're going to see a lot of Tennessee Titans finishing at the bottom of the AFC South, a lot of the Titans finishing towards the bottom of the league, and probably some of the conversation is going to be, well, so who are the Titans drafting at quarterback next year when they have the number 3 overall pick or whatever it is? You're going to see a lot of that happen. And I know the initial reaction to that is, well, there was some of that last year, and everybody told us the Titans were going to be good and in a playoff race, and then they weren't very good. So maybe some Titans fans are a little gun-shy as to what that can mean heading into this year. I would say this. I think the Titans have a chance to make the playoffs. Do I think that would I pick them to make the playoffs today? Probably not, but I think they've got a chance to make the playoffs, and I would be very surprised. I'm not going to say stunned, but I would be very surprised, and I think things would have to go pretty spectacularly bad for them to be as bad as some people think they're going to be this year. It would require basically Will Levis to just be awful, which I think some people expect that he will be.
Right. I have to think that that's the bottom line of these projections, that people just think Levis is bad. So, and if he is, well, then they will be that bad. But I think he's got enough support around him if he has a pocket to stand in this year. He's got people to get the ball to. So I think they're going to definitely be a pretty good or better offense, and then the defense is just that really is. I think it's harder to predict, even though this is a quarterback year. I don't think Levis is going to be like awful. I just can't buy that. Maybe he's not going to end this season with clear understanding from everyone that he's the guy moving forward, or that he's the future. But he's going to be pretty good. The defense could be quite good, or it could be quite bad.
Yeah, it really is wild what the I guess range is on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Titans. Our YouTube chat is open. Our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Do you consider the Titans to be a threat to make the playoffs in 2024? More next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll have Adam Bingen and Nick Keyser coming up next on the Chase and Big Joe Show.
Veezer. That's what I call the show. Look at Keyser doesn't like that. Bingen and Keyser. Veezer. It's like Weezer, but with a V.
Joe, you need to work on your headline writing, man.
Wow. Well, it's not a headline. It's the name of your show.
Right.
No comment.
Just no comment. He's done listening.
That doesn't deserve
Yeah,
anything.
that's it. What about Kingen?
Yeah,
Yeah, I kinda like that too.
That's better.
Is it?
King and Veezer.
All right. See what happens. 9 to 11 today. Adam Bingen, Nick Keyser. Check it out.
Exciting.
Got a YouTube commenter saying WHMR with our Titans
Yeah,
conversation.
sure.
Yeah, maybe
Well, that's
so.
the thing. I mean, there's a lot of that going around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes around every market, I'm sure. Like, I mean, I don't know. It's Boston radio. Yeah, I guess they're still in the afterglow of the Celtics crappy title. I don't know.
Well, probably in the afterglow of the Tom Brady retirement ceremony or the jersey retirement ceremony too,
Oh, wait, did they just do that?
a month ago.
Totally missed that.
Yeah.
That was before or after the roast?
It was after the roast.
After the roast?
Post roast.
So it was a little classier event,
Yeah,
I
a
hope,
little
than the
classier
roast.
event, yeah.
Okay, good. His kids didn't have to hear
No.
horrible
None of that.
things about people doing things. Okay, that's good. But I'm in every market. You know, there's a certain level of WHMR, I'm sure, relative to unless you're in a market where you actually have a good team.
Yeah.
You know, which this market may again have a bad team, but may not.
I don't think there's anything wrong with us or anybody else saying, yeah, don't really know. Like, I think there are a lot of years where you got a pretty good idea about what a team is going to be, right? Like when the Titans made all those moves and they brought in Julio Jones and, the offseason that they had after winning the division the year before that, like we knew that they're probably going to be a pretty good team. Now, it didn't play out ultimately, like stylistically, the way we thought it was going to be, but that team still was the number 1 seed in the AFC.
Yeah.
So we knew heading into that year, the Titans were going to be pretty good, and they were pretty good. This year, I have no idea. Like, you could tell me the Titans were going to finish 10-7, and I could say, yeah, okay. And you could tell me that they were going to be 6-11, 5-12, and I'd say, okay. Like, I could see both, which I think I think the reason why is simple. Number one, the quarterback, and number two, you have a first-time head coach. I have no idea if Brian Callahan is a good coach or not yet. I mean, I like his background. I like everything I've heard him say. I like, obviously, the pedigree that his staff has, most importantly, his father. I like Denard Wilson. I like a lot of things. But how many coaching hires and coaching staffs come through either here or anywhere else, and the first offseason, people are like, I don't know about this. This may not go very well. So I have no idea. Brian Callahan, when things are live and it's your first experience as not only a head coach, but a play caller, I have no idea what that's going to look like. So I think there's a lot of mystery with this team, which, number one, makes it pretty intriguing. I think the quarterback is a huge part of that, and how well he's going to play. Does he take a big leap forward this year? There's a lot that's intriguing about this Titans team, but I don't think anybody has a really good grasp for how good they're going to be. It could be a wide range of what we could see out of that football team this year.
Yeah, and again, the quarterback QB thing, or the quarterback QB thing, the quarterback coach thing. I guess the only other team I can find in the league that it has the same sort of thing where it's like you're finding out about a coach and a quarterback would be the Patriots this year.
Yes.
Am I missing someone? Like Harbaugh comes in and he's got an established QB.
Well, I mean, Washington, but they've got a guy that's been a head coach before. So
yeah, so that's different.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is the teams we're talking about are all supposed to be bad.
Exactly.
And I think the Patriots Commanders will be, but the Titans may not be. WHMR.
What about Carolina?
Well, that actually, no, that's a good point, though. They are very much in the same boat as the Titans, right? In terms of it's year 2, but you're still trying to figure out a QB. I'm not backing off that I think Bryce Young is really good, and I'd like to see him have a chance.
And the hire that they made with Canales is like so out of left field.
A little bit, off the wall.
Yeah.
A little bit. So, yeah, that's true. That's a good point. They are. And
But,
again,
but
and another
everybody
team-
thinks they're going to be awful.
Well, exactly.
Everybody.
Exactly. Well, everybody thinks all four of those teams are going to be awful.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks Titans are going to be awful. I just think that, and again, it's like we study every move and talk about every single thing that they do. So I don't remember everything Carolina did, Maybe I'm selling some of those teams short, but I think the Titans, when you spend like the Titans did, you better get something out of it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, Washington did not spend like the Titans spent. Carolina did not spend like the Titans spent, and didn't bring in the talent. Like, when you start talking around who won free agency in like the league, Houston is going to come up, but the Titans are going to come up pretty short in the conversation, right? Like especially if you factor in the Snead trade to all that, beyond just the signings. Like, they did a lot. And we've talked about this. All of them, all the moves they made are not going to work out. Like, it's very unlikely that everything they did this offseason is going to be a positive return for them. But if more work out than don't, then they should be in a place where you're winning 7-8 games at least. And then if you're winning 7 or 8 games, then you're going to be, you would think, in the mix at least until pretty late into the year.
Yeah, with the 7th team, 8 and 9, certainly if you can get to 8 wins or you're approaching 8 wins, you're going to be somewhere in there. I mean, mathematically in there.
Yeah.
Like the Titans should be fighting for a spot in December. I think that'd be disappointing if not. I'd say their range is probably 4 to 10. Is that about right?
I would say
the
so.
floor is about 4, and the ceiling is about 10.
If they
it's hard
more
for me
than-
to imagine anything worse or better than either of those two things.
If they won more than 10 games this year, I mean, that would be outstanding.
Then
I don't
you've
know
got
that
a
I've seen it
coach
happen.
of the year
Yeah.
candidate, and you've got your quarterback,
Right.
probably, unless it's just weird stuff, which happens in the league.
It does. Like,
Just like 21, right? I mean, that was pass rush and defense.
Yeah, for sure. And we're a year removed from everybody thinking the Houston Texans were going to be awful, and then they got to the divisional round of the playoffs and won the division. So things can change in this league very quickly, particularly if you figure out quarterback. And if Levis has a Stroud-like jump this year, then they're probably going to be in the 9, 10, 11 win range. If those things work out and Ridley stays healthy and Hopkins gives you what he gave you last year. But then, I mean, we're already in this conversation and there's a lot of ifs that are happening. How many ifs are going to work out?
But at least they
Some
have
will.
At least they have some ifs.
Yeah.
Like some teams don't have a lot of ifs.
Right.
Like what are Patriots ifs? I mean, they're just going to stink, right?
I mean, I guess it would be
Save
if
that.
Drake May is
Yeah, he's amazing. as a
Amazing.
rookie right away.
Yeah.
But their D's okay. But yeah, the Titans have addressed some things pretty effectively, it appears.
It appears. And I think they're in the mix with a lot of these other teams in the AFC, like Jacksonville and Indianapolis and the Chargers, that are there's a wide range of possible. Like the Chargers to me are really interesting because everybody still believes they've got the quarterback, and now most people believe they've got the head coach. But I look at their wide receiver room and I'm like, who's catching the ball? Like who is Justin Herbert? Is Ladd McConkey going to catch 175 balls as a rookie this year? Like who are they throwing the ball to?
Yeah, what a change for him. Obviously Staley wasn't good, and but if you're Justin Herbert, you go from a loaded receiver room to no receivers, and also this freaking weirdo's your head coach now. You got to deal with Harbaugh every day.
Who's got it better than us, Justin?
Here's some
Nobody.
milk. Drink this milk carton.
They should have him mic'd
What a
up at all
change.
times.
The Harbster?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely more interesting than his better coach and more well-adjusted human brother.
That is
John.
It's true. And then the beautiful thing about the NFL too is, like, you say you'd be shocked if Buffalo doesn't make the playoffs. I guess I'd probably be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. I do think they're going to be
Step back.
significantly worse than they have been. Like I don't know that I look at them right now. And I guess anytime you have Josh Allen and when he's playing at his absolute best, you have to put him in the conversation. But I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender right now. That's just me. I don't. I think Baltimore's better than they are. I think Kansas City's better than they are. I think Cincinnati, if they're healthy, is better than they are. Look, I think the Jets, if they can stay healthy, have a chance to be better than they are. But I just there's going to be somebody, probably a couple of teams that are way worse than we think they are right now on July 8th, and there's going to be a couple that come out of nowhere, like Russell Wilson goes on some crazy run with Pittsburgh and they're 11-6 or whatever,
or
it is.
Justin Fields,
or Justin Fields, yeah,
or both,
yeah, or does Bo Nix play really well out of the gate for Denver, and you're 8 weeks into the season and they're 5-3 or whatever it is.
Sure.
I mean, it's things like that happen every year in this league.
I mean, Cleveland has a really good roster, and they could just totally circle the drain if Deshaun Watson. But what if he at least gets to a level of being pretty good again with that roster? They could be potent team.
It's going to be really interesting. We're just a couple weeks out now from training camp, so we're getting close to football season.
Thank goodness for hockey acquisitions, though.
I know. Big week last week.
I bet you that Vieser will be talking about the hockey.
I bet you they will
in this next.
I bet you that
next
Vieser,
couple
is that
hours,
happening?
right?
Yes, I'm about did Ryan O'Reilly really try to recruit Mitch Marner to Nashville?
I saw that.
Really?
It'd be very interesting. I did see a report on that.
That's a switch from what I would have expected.
Yeah. Adam Vingan, Nick Keyser coming up next. That does it for us today. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.